Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 5:30, and I will call this regular work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. Our work sessions are informal, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that we are meeting in person and virtually. So if you want to view us, we are on channel 16 or 859. You can also join us on Zoom, or go online at www.burnsvillemn.gov/meetings. And then you can also join us on Zoom, https://zoom.us/join. So, and then the meeting ID is 937-9099-5298. And if you have any questions, you can also call us at 651-372-8299. Okay, great. Now we'll go on to the first item of our agenda, and that is the Heart of the City Framework Plan. And presenting this evening, Regina, are you going to introduce our guests who have been working with us? It's good to see them back. Thank you so much. But I'll have you introduce them.
I will, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah.
So today we have Jeff McMiniman and Tom Whitlock with Damon Farber. They've been assisting us with the Heart of the City Design Framework. Certainly if there's questions, myself or Jen Desrud or any of city staff can help out along the way. But this is a check-in opportunity for the consultant team to check in with you as a council to give you an update on what's been done so far. So back in August, we kicked off the design framework. To date, we've done some public outreach. Their team's been busy compiling a lot of research data on the ground and behind the scenes. And so they're going to share what they've done so far and then next steps of what they're planning to do. I do want to note that I know it's probably a burning question, what's going on with the assessment information. Do you have any information to present at this time? And at this time, we don't have that information to share. That will come in subsequent check-ins with the City Council, but just wanted to bring that up. I know it's probably a hot topic.
But it's a separate issue. It's a separate issue from the design framework.
It will be integrated
Yeah.
into the design framework work, but be presented at a later time.
Yeah.
So they're still in information gathering at this point, but
Sure.
it will be shared later on. And then, as a reminder, the entire design framework is anticipated to be completed in spring of 2022. With that, I'll turn it over to Jeff and Tom.
Welcome, Jeff and Tom.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to be here tonight. Let's see if I can get this
Full screen?
full screen. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Good evening. Thanks for joining us here tonight. I'm Jeff McMiniman, and I'm going to just go over our agenda here. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about the planning efforts that we've conducted to date during August and September, talk about next steps, but before that, we've got some materials to review with you. We've got some snapshots of some of the community and stakeholder input we've received to date. And we've got sort of a high-level overview of some of the existing conditions analysis. That is in progress. We hope to wrap that up by the end of the month, but you'll see some of the things that we're looking at in that. And then a preview of what we think the final deliverables will look like and how those support the council's vision, values, and priorities. And then we'll also do a quick update on next steps, so what we'll be doing in October and November for you. So with that, planning efforts to date, we've conducted the kickoff meeting with the consultant team and the project management team. We did this in late August. We conducted in early August, we conducted a walking tour in late August with the project management team, which was really advantageous for us to be able to walk through the heart of the district area, heart of the city district, with city staff and get their take on some of the things that they see as needing some improvement in the public realm. We conducted follow-up site visits with members of the consultant team, photographing areas that we were not able to see during our walking tour with staff. We've identified key stakeholders with staff, and we've begun to reach out to some of those stakeholders. We've been conducting interviews for about 2 weeks now with some of those stakeholders. We've also done an email blast to businesses in the heart of the district to let them know about the project and provided them with links to the project's website and the online survey and the mapping exercise. We've prepared for a couple of community engagement events. We attended the fire muster, and last week the Heart of the City open house to solicit community input, and we'll show you some of the input we received from those 2 events. We've prepared the project website, so it's a distinct website that there's a link on your city website that'll take you right to this website, and on that website there's project information. There are links to the online survey and the mapping exercise. So as you see here, there's the online survey, it's up and running. The mapping exercise, which allows people to provide input on what they think the highest priorities should be, where they think that there may be room for improvements in the heart of the city district, those kinds of things. We've been gathering and reviewing background data and information, related plans and studies, collecting GIS data, and mapping some of that out for the area. You'll see we've been conducting an evaluation of existing conditions in public spaces. So working towards preparing a draft analysis document by the end of this month. We have started our parking study. So looking at public parking within the district, measuring supply versus demand. We've started to conduct the ADA compliance study. Actually, a lot of that work has already been done. We're looking at ways to better map it now, graphically output that ADA compliance work. And we've prepared an updated framework document, table of contents. And we do this early on in a project because it provides us with sort of a roadmap for our work and what we're going to produce for you in that document. And we'll take a quick look at that as well. So, materials to review. We'll start with the snapshots of the community and stakeholder input, and some of the things we're hearing. As I mentioned, we've conducted a couple of community events. We're looking for other opportunities to engage with the community. We've got the website up and running. We've got the online survey and the mapping exercise up and running. And the idea there is to look at priorities for the district that are coming from the community. We've started the stakeholder interviews. Tom and I have been on the phone talking with stakeholders, tracking the input that we receive from those stakeholders on what's important in the district. We are working with staff to identify opportunities to engage with traditionally underrepresented groups, including BIPOC communities, seniors, people with disabilities, and youth communities. And so we're still, you'll see in a minute that when we talk about next steps, that is still work that we need to be conducting.
Jeff, Councilmember Keeley has a
Question.
question.
Yeah.
Who are the specific stakeholders that you are contacting right now?
So we've been given a list from staff of property owners in the district, businesses in the district, and then elected and appointed officials, which includes the Planning Commission, the Park Board, and Economic Development. Yeah.
And then also state agencies like MnDOT, Metro Transit.
Yep. Partner agencies.
MVTA.
MVTA,
Yeah.
we're meeting with them this week.
Great. Any
Burnsville.
residents
Oh.
that live in the heart of the city?
I was going to add the Burnsville Community Foundation, the Experience Burnsville, Chamber of Commerce are
Yep.
also, as well as residents, representation in the area, as far as like board presidents of the homeowners associations, as an example.
I would say that you should also reach out to some of the renters within the heart of the city, and not just the property owners, but the businesses in the heart of the city who benefit from being in that in the heart of the city. And there are quite a few of them, and I think they have a voice. They chose to be and to lease from those property owners because they feel that there is a value. And so I would like to hear from them, not just the property owners, because they take the money,
Mayor?
but it's the renters who pay the CAM cost and everything else. And why is it that they want to be a part of the heart of the city?
Mayor, if I may add, the specific open house that was conducted, we did send specific mailings to not only the property owners, but also the renters and the businesses that lease within the space. So they did receive a direct postcard to their residence or their office, exactly, inviting them to the specific open house, and then a link to information as one opportunity for them to be included in the conversation.
We had
That's
we had a
right.
few show up to the open house in front of the Ames Center. Actually, one that was located closer to Cub and was thinking about moving closer to Nicollet Commons. So
Okay,
So
yeah,
Just,
Dan, Kay?
it sounds like you checked the box of all of the leadership organizations and associations and et cetera, but I just don't want to leave out the importance and the number in your survey polling of stakeholders of the various types of residents that live down there. And especially, and I'm glad you called out the people of color and wheelchair and inaccessible,
The
that's-
seniors,
and seniors, that's a
Big
accessibility,
population.
especially wheelchair accessibility, walkers. I mean, we have a pretty decent senior representation, senior groups down there, and they want to get around, right? So
Yeah.
just really getting firsthand input from those users, I think, is really critical. I think you hit every single other organizational leadership or even HOA, like presidents or members. I have to ask, I'm on our board and I haven't heard anything from our other two board members on this as far as being contacted, but I think we just got to get it from everybody to make sure that we do a real comprehensive collection of the survey of users of various types to really do it right.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure those residents, all types of residents down there, renting, owning, condo, townhome, et cetera, and seniors are all pulled and involved in this.
I agree. And we do plan to reach out to Real Life and actually conduct a listening session with them.
Right.
We saw a lot of Real Life residents at the open house we conducted last week.
they're very engaged,
They're very engaged.
very
Yeah,
engaged in the
they
heart
are.
of the city.
Yep. Yeah, we had lots of residents come up and talk with us about that. And you'll see actually a lot of the input we received that we have reported here came from those residents. And in talking with them, a lot of them are walkers and they love to walk around the heart of the city district.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can just talk to the mayor about that.
well, we were asking probing questions, and everybody just has a great sense of pride about that place, and
Yep.
we were trying to get to the next level of detail, and everybody really had positive things to say.
Probably more probing questions at the open house, more so than at the fire muster. The fire muster was, the work that we had done for that was really the preparation for the party on the plaza, which was canceled, and then we moved it to fire muster. And that was so early in the process. It was more about building a sense of awareness for the project and higher level questions like, what do you like about the heart of the city district and things like that. So you'll see in the input that we received from those folks, and I've got it right here, fire muster event feedback on the boards. So describe Burnsville in 2 to 3 words. So that's really high level, right? Great parks, nice place to live, beautiful, friendly. People really like living in Burnsville is what we saw and heard. What I like most about the heart of the city, and Nicollet Commons definitely is right up at the top for most people. That is the heart of the city for most people. They love the performances. They love the fire muster event. They love just the gatherings and the plays that happen there, and the water feature. Really, the park itself is such a great asset. So some of the key takeaways from those, we had these graffiti boards where people could write whatever they wanted to on those boards, but they view Burnsville as a welcoming and nice place to live, which is great. You know, it's part of your priorities for the city to make it a welcoming and inclusive place. Nicollet Commons is the main attraction of the heart of the city, as well as the performance and festivals.
I'll go back. One of the things I like is that we have young people in that photograph
Yeah,
that's giving their input.
that's right.
That's our future. You know, it's
Yeah.
nice to have all of the seniors, but this is our future.
You're right. And we had as young as 5 years old writing on the graffiti board at this event. So we had all ages participating in some of this input here, which was great to see.
And the graffiti board was at the,
That's these boards here that those young folks are writing on.
was that at the fire muster?
This was at the fire muster.
That was on
Block
Wednesday or
party.
Thursday, the block party
block
on.
party.
Yeah.
Is that Wednesday or Thursday? No, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
That was,
there-
that's the
That was-
kickoff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
Black
was
Party.
the
Yeah.
block
I
party
get
in
that
the front
car
of the
show
Ames
goofed up.
Center.
Yep,
This was in
Yeah.
front of the Ames Center.
I remember I was there and I
you were there.
participated in it.
Yeah,
but-
we talked quite a
Yeah.
bit
we
that
did.
evening, yep.
it-
You were there with your grandson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he the 5-year-old who wrote on the board?
I only wish that you could have gone to the fire muster on the fire muster grounds on Saturday, because the diversity represented was representative of
We were there.
Burnsville, or more representative of, no, the
The
board.
graffiti board.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But-
talking
board
about.
was there.
Yeah.
It
we
was
were-
on Saturday?
After I worked the yellow
Oh,
ribbon.
at the booth, you were at your
Yeah,
booth.
the-
Sorry, I was thinking of these guys
Yeah.
when they had the boards at the part of the plaza that I did,
Yeah.
but you did have that same kind of
So-
setup there, right?
At the fire muster on Saturday, there was city representation, but the focus there was on the zoning code update.
Yeah,
So it was a
that's right.
different,
Yeah.
different purpose at that
Yeah,
particular.
but we had a diverse group, and they
Yeah.
were right there, and the code was very important for all of them as well.
Yeah, but that's not this discussion, right? For this purpose, that's the day that I would have loved to have seen you there with your boards.
Sure.
Doing this, because we witnessed it at the front gate. Burnsville's people of color at 39%. It wasn't 39%, but it was huge, and it was bigger than I'd ever seen it working the front gate for the last 15 years, receiving people at the fire muster. It was the best example of the diversity of Burnsville coming in, and it would have been great to capture that, right? That group, and been able to take advantage of the fact that we had so many folks there, people of color, that would have engaged in this and given us their perspective.
Sure.
Right? So maybe we can still have an opportunity to capture that through the rest of your stakeholder interviews and some other ways, but.
That's our goal.
Well, the lighting ceremony is another opportunity.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we did during the fire muster event was a couple of us had interview clipboards, and we walked around and we interviewed folks. And we had a real captive audience because our booth was right next to the hamburger and bratwurst booth. And so there was a long line of people, so we got in line and we were chatting with folks as they were waiting for their. So this is the feedback from those interviews, which I think is really helpful too. So we asked them, what's the biggest attraction of the heart of the city? And so you can see some of the comments that we got back from folks then. We asked them, in one word, describe what it feels like at the heart of the city. And you can see some of the terms that people used there: fun, diverse, it's welcoming, it's more walkable than other parts of the city, I think is what they meant. One word to describe what you'd like it to feel like at the heart of the city. You see this already good. A lot of people already feel really good about some things there, but there were other folks that thought maybe more variety, more populated was an interesting thing to hear. More entertainment and
More
restaurants.
populated, like more
More
dense
density,
housing.
more people living there.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yep. More frequent events, things like that, attractions. And what's the one thing that would make you visit here more often? And this is, for us, in our work, really helpful to hear answers to this one. So, the idea of bike share, nice rides or something like that. That's a great thing that's part of the public realm. Shared transportation, more events, make it more affordable, more music, and food trucks. Folks thought it would have been, the fire muster would have been a better event had there been food trucks there as well. So there are some good takeaways here for us in our work.
Yeah, we agree with that comment, by the way.
So the key takeaways from the interviews were that Nicollet Commons is the main attraction of the heart of the city, as well as the performances and the festivals. People would like to have more frequent entertainment and event offerings. And they're interested in things like bike share and shared transportation options, which was great for us to hear too. So there was a mapping exercise also at both of these events that we've attended. And so people are able to place a red dot on places they like within the district, and so you can see there are a lot of them at Nicollet Commons, a lot of them at Real Life, and blue dots on public places you think need improvement in the district. And those are falling all on, it looks like intersections to
Yeah.
us.
That's
So
what I
the
hear.
intersections are a little bit of a problem. Some of the traffic you'll see in some of these other comments have been problems too. And then they're able to also put their comments on a Post-it note. And so we've also documented those kinds of things.
It's interesting, they talk about dog poop bags. Dogs are not allowed in Nicollet Commons.
What?
Yeah, they are. You can't swim in it.
I
Yeah.
don't think they're allowed in the pond, but they're allowed to.
There's people that
Uh,
walk
the-
pets all the
one
time
of the
there.
things is that, I just see people not taking care of their dog poop. I hate that, because there's a
That's
lot
not-
of
that's
small.
not allowed.
Well, there's a lot of small children, and small children put stuff in their mouths.
I just watched poop off of tiny shoes last night.
They didn't put it in their mouth, did they?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So you're,
Trained them well.
you mentioned, Madam Mayor,
Ample
that
false
dogs are
stars
not
in the
allowed in Nicollet Commons Park.
They are.
That's not a policy of the city, right?
No, they're not
No.
allowed in the stream, but they can be in the
In the
park.
water, yeah, but there's plenty of grounds
can't
to
go
walk your
water
dog
over.
around, right?
I think we
Yeah,
have signs
it's-
up. that
it's one
state
of the
that.
things that we talked about is because some of the dogs are big and some of those little people are small.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a debate of going back and forth whether dogs should be there. But I've seen big dogs and you have little people,
Yeah.
and they could get hurt. A dog could just push them over and they'll hit their
Well, they
head
have
on
to be
one
on
of
a
those.
leash.
Huh?
So dogs are required to be on a leash, so it's up to the owner to control the dog properly, but.
Yeah.
Well, we're having this debate
Yeah.
at the fire muster allowing pets, and it's always a big debate
It's
with
always a big debate.
events and festivals
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And like the Renaissance Festival allows pets, but you have to pre-register the pet and provide vaccinations and that kind of stuff in advance of bringing the dog to be
Yeah,
allowed
for
through.
me,
But
it's always those
that's a
little
bit of a-
people, because
Yeah.
Nicollet Commons Park was designed for little people.
Sure. Did you mention that a poop bag receptacle was?
Yeah,
was that-
Yeah,
So
I
that-
saw a
Yeah, that's
Post-it
one of
note
the
that says that
recommendations.
to supply
Liberties.
I think that's
And that's something
smart.
we can certainly put into the
Yeah.
design guidelines.
and just,
So, here's some more information about what we heard, and you do see that somebody even thought about identifying a designated space for dogs, maybe in the heart of the district. They probably meant, a dog park. So great comments here. A lot of concern about the speed of cars in the district, safe pedestrian crossings, those kinds of things. Some concern about who's going to maintain these public improvements. Assessments are a concern that we will be addressing as part of this work. Some suggested maybe moving the farmer's market to Nicollet
yeah, and
Commons.
that has been debated for so long. You need a place to park. Where we have it now, the farmers like it there because they can
Yeah.
pull up all of their
Yeah.
cars, and it's right there for them to,
They
yeah.
do, but they'd like to see more activities there, because I've talked to those farmers every Saturday, and
Yeah.
they'd
like to see more things happen. I like the leave the winter lights up year round. Those are good.
Leave the winter lights up year-round, more signage and
do that a lot myself.
wayfinding,
Yeah, then
more
it's-
space
then
for
it's not
bikes.
special.
It can be.
So a lot of really good input for us, really. A lot of these things are related to public space. And the questions at this open house were more directed towards our work in the district about the public space. So great to see things like this. On the priorities, you can see landscaping and more green space got the most amount of votes here. But other things like, safe crossings, the speed of cars and things like that, I think that is also a big concern for people. In particular, folks told us on Nicollet Avenue. The speed of cars on Nicollet coming right through the heart of the city is just too fast, most people thought. So next engagement steps are really to continue the online survey and the mapping exercise on the website. Reach out and conduct our outreach to underserved, underrepresented groups in the community, and we have to continue with our stakeholder interviews and listening sessions. We're just getting started on those, really. High level here, our analysis, we've been looking at context, so not just the heart of the city itself, but outside of it, so we understand the relationships between road networks, transit connections, trails and open spaces, cultural assets that we might want to better connect to through the heart of the city. The heart of the city character districts, this is building on the original heart of the city framework, which identified 2 different character districts. We've added the third one, as you know, to the west side of I-35. So we'll be building on that work that was done then. We still think it's a valid thing for us to be including in this, these character districts. The street network, we're looking at that and layering in the recommendations from the TOD zoning ordinance that you have now to create some smaller blocks with some of these future roadway connections, which creates a more walkable kind of environment with smaller block patterns. Looking at different streets and how to make improvements on the streets, commercial streets. These are all in progress, but what these will have these will have annotated photographs. We'll have cross sections for each one of the different streets in the district. Looking at pedestrian and bike circulation, identifying gaps and areas where we can make improvements in those connections. Looking at intersections and crossings, looking at ways to make those more safe for people to cross. We'll be identifying some strategies for that, but also identifying some of the problems that we see in the district today. Streetscape amenities, looking at things like sidewalk paving, ADA compliance, some of the amenities like benches, site lighting, stuff like that, and making recommendations on those. Looking at green space in the district and whether or not we might want to add any additional green space or open spaces like plazas or things like that in the district. You can see there's not a lot of public green space in the district. It's pretty much centered on Nicollet Commons today, but you do have some just outside of the district that we might want to take a look at connecting better to. Wayfinding and signage. We've been looking at some of the existing wayfinding and signage in the district, and we'll be making recommendations on that. So any questions on the existing conditions analysis or comments?
No, I think we commented as you were going
Okay.
along.
So,
I do have a question. You
Yeah.
said you're just starting your parking work now. Have you identified some areas yet that are a problem? I hear, when I get down there I hear from a lot of people that there are times parking becomes a real problem in the heart of the city, and some of the concerns as we're building out for more density of housing, our apartments and that are actually, they're building parking for their tenants, but they have guests and there's overnights and there's a lot of different things that are going to start to change the dynamic of that whole area.
I can't
Here-
comment yet on the parking study itself. SEH is on our team doing that, but I will say this, what we've heard at the open house and at fire muster is that there's a general sense of not knowing that there is parking supply right there in the heart of the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah,
We were at the open house, we were talking with a woman who has a business in the district, and she was unaware completely of the parking ramp that's just to the
Yeah.
south of Nicollet Commons.
Yeah.
Had no idea that that was a public parking facility. And when we were talking about parking supply for the Nicollet Commons itself, she said, there's just not enough parking around here. And I pointed out just to the north that there's this parking ramp.
Deck.
And she's like, oh yeah, I forget about that all the time. So I think it's a sense of awareness and education and signage that's going to help.
Yeah. There's another issue, and the issue is that the apartment buildings that are going up in the heart of the city, so underground parking is available to their tenants, but it has a cost. And I can tell you, the people from the Mervyn apartment building
Maven.
are parking in the deck.
Yeah,
We've heard
Underground.
that.
yeah, we understand
You know,
that.
because, and for me, that's an issue. The Mervyn and all of these
The Maven?
apartment buildings
You
that
mean
are
the Maven?
supposed to, huh?
The Maven?
The Maven,
Oh, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, when did Mervyn open?
no, the Maven. So they're parking in public parking overnight because it's allowed.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to pay to park underground. And, you know, and their surface parking is full.
Yeah, our understanding is the Maven got some discounts on parking because they're so close to a transit station. And we've heard that some people are parking at the public parking facility that live at the Maven. And we did talk with Metro Transit last week, and there's some concern that you'll see some, I call it hide and ride at, transit stations where
yeah.
people will park where they can for free and
Yeah.
then take the transit to their work or wherever it is they're going. So I think that that's something that the city's going to want to be aware of, and you might want to consider different ways to manage the parking supplies that you do have in the district. We'll be looking at shared parking strategies as well, because
Yeah.
there are some businesses that need parking during the day, don't need it at night, and vice versa.
And we also have, in that deck, I know there's some commercial parking that's taking place in there where trucks are going in there and taking 3 or 4 spaces this way. It's parking overnight now, so it's taking up a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
think
room.
we had a conversation with the group that's operating the Ames Center, and because they haven't had events for a while during COVID,
That's my
they're
concern.
starting to, they're seeing it, and they don't know its impact yet. So as they begin to have more events,
Well, when
My
Ames gets
cons-
busy and Med Cruz gets busy at the same time, it gets a little crazy there anyways. And
Yeah.
In the Med Cruise, in their PUD, we have an agreement that we're providing public parking so that they could be in the heart of the city. And the analysis between the Met Cruise and the events at the Ames Center all along have been compatible and had enough parking for both events. But now when we start up again with the dance recitals and all of that, and you have the Met Cruise, but now you have the residents of the Maven taking up a lot of the spaces down on the lower deck. That's going to be a big issue. Councilmember Kara Schultz, Councilmember Schultz, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, so some of this touches on a little bit of what you were talking about before on this. In looking at other communities.
We need your volume to go up. We can't hear you very well.
The volume not good.
Now
it is.
better,
That's good.
now better.
So in talking with other communities about the direction that they're going, and also just one of the offhand comments that was made, a lot of places are moving to be more pet friendly or more dog friendly rather than less, especially in a lot of shared spaces to the point where even their restaurants and breweries and those types of facilities that normally you would not see an animal other than an ADA animal in it. They're allowing them and encouraging them. And that is an amenity that appears to be gaining traction in, younger persons, like younger families, younger singles and couples and that type of thing. So I was wondering if they had any information on that, in which they've worked with other cities, and any feedback that they were hearing from our residents in particular.
I don't mind if the dog owners took care of their pets and had them on leashes.
So we
Because
did.
most of them do.
We did hear from some of the folks that live at Real Life. They had some comments about pets, and it was mostly that people, weren't picking up their poop, that kind of thing. So we wrote down for ourselves, okay, we need to make sure that we get the poop bags, in the public realm as part of this framework update. And a lot of communities are doing that now too. And I think you're right, council member, that we're seeing more and more pets in our communities. We're working on the Minnetonka Park System Master Plan right now, and I know it's a big issue there. And doing some research on that, we found that 40% of American families now have a pet in their family, have a dog, not just a pet, a dog. So it's becoming more and more of an issue, and providing places for those pets is something that, as planners, we're trying to build into communities. So, and you did get a comment, we did get a comment from somebody at the open house to provide designated areas for dogs somewhere in the district.
Yeah, we need a dog park downtown. Absolutely.
A park or pet relief areas?
Well, they said a designated dog area, and I think they were thinking a dog park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may comment.
Yeah.
Millennials are the number one pet owner demographic, and that I've witnessed in some of those areas like the North Loop, where there's a lot of rehabbed warehouse buildings, and it's now apartments and condos. Everybody is walking a pet down there. It's pretty much a millennial attraction spot, and it is amazing how many pets are being walked everywhere. And they have spots in these buildings. They've created little green spaces, even if it's really small, within the building, so they have some place to go, and it's got a drain field underneath it, so it's basically the shortest distance to take the dog to relieve themselves. But I would agree with Councilmember Schultz that we have to have a very open mind to pets. I think the poop bag stations, if a garbage can isn't good enough, I mean, I drop them in the garbage cans when I'm walking my dog in the heart of the city. But those pet poop collection things, whatever they are, having more of those, right? Because garbage cans might be a little less frequent, but those
Just
could be
having the
placed.
bags
Yeah.
available.
And
'Cause
bags
a lot of times,
available, right?
I have a dog, and sometimes, usually 99% of the time, I walk the dog and I have a bag in my pocket, but every once in a while I don't, and I've got to walk all the way home
Absolutely.
to get it.
Exactly.
You know.
And then walk all the way back to pick it up, right?
Right.
So I think that's critical for this walkable community, and I think we've got there's two areas that I think we need to work on, and one is the accessibility with wheelchair walkers of all ages, and the other is pets. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we got to really think through how that's being addressed, and so it's more, that makes the heart of the city more attractive to millennials to come move into when we're addressing, the things that they make a priority. And they're the number one pet owner in America, and they spend a ton of money on pets, on pet stuff. So I'm glad you covered that. And that's, I think about our presentation from our meeting last week by a city council member in Kansas City, and how they took ADA to a new level when designing their new airport. The city actually owns their airport as opposed to a municipal airports commission, and they're thinking of things I've never thought about in putting in this public facility. Adult changing stations, not just baby changing stations, and how high off the ground and how sturdy they are and accessible they are, and they talked about accessible playgrounds everywhere, and we just opened up an accessible playground, so we have one, right? So everybody in the entire city who has a child with disability has one playground to go to, and so it's like changing the mindset to go, why don't we put accessible stuff in every playground so able and enabled can play together? And it really opened up my mind, and we have so many opportunities to improve Burnsville in so many areas with changing our thinking about, well, just doing it once doesn't actually really meet the needs of the community.
You know, Ryan, I'm thinking of East Crosstown Park. It's pretty big, isn't it? Because we put a new community, we put in a community garden, but there's still a lot of space in East Crosstown.
Crosstown, I think that was Crosstown, yeah, east. Crosstown West is
east.
closer.
Yeah,
That'd be a
but I'm just trying to figure out on Crosstown West, you know,
Yeah, so
that's,
if we're talking about pets,
yeah,
it is a problem in the heart of the city.
yeah,
Nicollet Commons Park is not ideal
no,
for pets. They are allowed there, but they're not allowed
Yeah.
in the water feature. The water feature's a pool, and Department of Health, if we start allowing it, we'd be shut down, so
Yeah.
we're not going to, but,
yeah,
there is a definite need. The person who works down there has raised concerns through the years about how do we manage this, and it detracts from the district if you got things, dog poop that's not
Yeah.
getting picked up.
yeah,
And it goes back, I think, to your point. When you walk your dog, sometimes you're not thinking, oh, he already went, he or she, so then you go for a short walk, you go to the park, and suddenly they go again, and you're like stuck without a bag. Providing the bags, providing receptacle probably helps eliminate, not 100%, but will help eliminate the problem because you're providing the tool to allow them to clean it up,
Convenient.
right in that area, right?
Yep. Well, we should probably finish up.
Yeah.
We have just one more element of this presentation that Tom is going to go through quick. I mentioned earlier that we've got a draft table of contents for the document that we'll be preparing. And Tom is going to run through an example of that final deliverable for you.
Yeah, well, so I think, you know, we're thinking forward about how this document comes together, how it you know, piggybacks on the original plan, but also may fill in some gaps that were in the original plan as things have evolved. But making sure it's a useful tool, not only for your staff, but for developers, for residents, for your vendors who are maintaining this area, or staff who's maintaining it. So we want to make sure that it's a useful tool. So these are just some images of some of the public realm guideline that we did for the city of Minnetonka around the Ridgedale area. And just getting into everything, signage, we just talked about it related to parking. But, you know, what is sort of the family of elements and the character of this? So these are just some illustrations of what that document could look like, but we'd certainly, you know, welcome any feedback that you have or things that you're thinking about that you want this document to do for the city.
And we also wanted to make sure that what we're doing is supporting your vision, values, and priorities. And, you know, we've been looking at those as we go through all of this, and, you know, making the city more welcoming for all. You know, that's what this is really about, is making it more accessible. A lot of things we're talking about, making it more accessible, making it welcoming for everybody, respecting everybody, different levels of ability, you know, different age groups. So, you know, we're doing parks in some communities for to make them more accessible, but we're also doing parks that are for older people as well, so that older people can actually go in and work out in the park. So they're we're trying to make that public realm more adaptable, safer, We're engaging with the community as much as we can during this process, making the public realm more sustainable and addressing things like transportation and infrastructure in the heart of the city. So we see a tremendous amount of alignment between the work we're doing on this project and the city council's vision, values, and priorities that you guys have established.
Looks good. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot more in the future. So next steps, though, are in October and November. Again, we'll be conducting more listening interviews, our stakeholder interviews and listening sessions. We'll be reaching out to BIPOC senior and youth communities, engaging with them. We'll be collecting and summarizing the community engagement input and documenting it into a report, and that'll be part of the framework update. And then preparing a district inventory and needs assessment report by the end of this month. And then beginning the design framework update recommendations. That's a result of the analysis and the assessment.
I would suggest that Risen Savior is a faith community that has a large Hispanic community that worships there on Sunday afternoon. And they're from all different Latin countries, from South America to Central to Mexico, Spain. So that's a community that you might want to access and see after one of the masses to have a conversation. There are Sundays where they have a lot of information sharing for all of the people who come to Mass. And that might be an opportunity for, if you talk to them and find out.
Sure.
Did you mention in your checklist earlier the YMCA? Are you connecting with the YMCA at all?
I don't think they're on our list.
They weren't on our list.
Who
Doesn't
wasn't
mean we
on your
can't reach
list?
out to
The YMCA.
Yeah,
They, the executive director,
Danny.
Rubio is Hispanic, their new community outreach, Latinx woman. They would be, I think, I would include them in that
Yeah.
polling of stakeholders.
And also our Islamic Institute. We have 3 mosques in Burnsville, so.
Definitely.
We'll be working with staff in the next week here to identify those additional stakeholders to reach out to.
Thank you.
And if there's an opportunity to get into our elementary school, let me tell you, when we did the Heart of the City and did Partnerships for Tomorrow, the youth were the ones who really gave us great ideas.
We always get good ideas.
It was
from
because
young
of them, we have a skateboard park, and we have a garage, and we have all of the different amenities that were of interest to them, but it was their voices. And we heard it and made it happen together. They helped also.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our utility system overview, the drinking water, taste, and odor. And presenting this evening is going to be Jeff Raddick, our Assistant Public Works Director. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Yeah?
maybe I can do
I
it.
thought, she said, okay, Jeff, your turn to get up there.
Yes. You don't see Jeff that often here, but I just like to point out how.
Huh?
I'll just hold off.
You'll wait and introduce him and,
Sure.
okay. Our Public Works Director, Ryan Peterson, is going to introduce our Assistant Public Works Director, who's going to be presenting on the taste and odor discussion.
Sounds good. I just want to give Jeff some kudos while I have the opportunity. He doesn't get to visit with you that often. But Jeff is in charge of our streets division, our utilities division, fleet management, and parks maintenance. And so when all these good things happen behind the scenes that in these different areas, he's doing a tremendous job of supervising those. He also does a lot of the major maintenance projects too, and was the project manager on projects like the Nicola Commons Park. So Jeff just does a tremendous job of managing our both operations and capital improvements out in Public Works, so.
Thank you, and I also want to shout out for Jeff, because during the tornado, the storm, I was out there and saw Jeff just driving around to interact and see what was going on. And I think I was on 140th Street when Jeff came by, and I waved at him. And
Yeah,
he
I was
sort of
making a
went-
plan for the next day, so.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, planning,
We ran
yeah,
into
that's right,
each other.
because I was at 140th in the afternoon. Yeah, and
Were you walking?
I was out there, yeah, with all of with our neighbors who were really impacted by, yeah. So I was in South River Hills, and then I went over to Loch Levon, I think it was 140th, and then it wasn't White Oak, what was the street, just,
Frontier,
White
Huh?
Rock.
White Rock.
yeah, yeah, that, yeah. So, and Jeff was out there making sure that he was ready for the next day. Thank you, Jeff, for everything that you do.
Yep, thank you. Good evening. Like I said, I don't get to talk to you very much. Usually when there's something that comes up, I usually ask the superintendent if they want to do it. They're the passionate people in their specific area. And Tony really wanted to do this. He's our new utilities superintendent, but couldn't. And so Ryan and I made this decision, I'll do it. So you get the 20-year-old veteran of Public Works. So, as we're to frame the discussion, we're going to talk about a little bit utilities 101, and then we're going to get specifically a little bit more into taste and odor as we go along tonight. So utilities 101, basically a introductory college level course to Burnsville utilities. We are an enterprise system. We operate by selling the product of water and the service of sanitary collection, and the ratepayer pays us back for those services. The value of the inventory is over $100 million. Current revenue is over $17 million in a year. And we really frame our management of the utility in an operation sense and a capital replacement sense. We also like to, even though we are a enterprise system, we still like to frame our discussion in the core values and strategic priorities of the city. And that it'll go on as the presentation goes along. I won't spend a lot of time on them. But drinking water, we think about that in two senses, really: production and distribution. The production is the making and the treating of the water, and the distribution is the distributing to the services. In 2020, we were 3.1 billion gallons of water that was charged. We provide 60 to 90% of Savage's water. So when we make decisions, we're not just making decisions on the 60,000 people in Burnsville, we're making the decisions on the 60,000 in Burnsville and the 20,000 in Savage. So they're a great partner of ours, and they have been since for
2009.
several decades now. So. Groundwater is the original source water for the city of Burnsville. We have 17 groundwater wells. They provide the majority of our water still. We basically have two well fields. We have the well field, we call it below the bluff and above the bluff. Basically the wells that are below in the cliff area, and the ones that are on Parkway above the bluffs. So they have, they're a little unique. The ones below the bluff have fen impacts to them and cause fen impacts to differing degrees. Each well has differing degrees. And the ones above the bluff don't have those fen impacts. And then surface water. We have the chance to diversify our water sources in the early 2000s with Kramer pumping water into the pumping groundwater that is upwelling in their quarry to the Minnesota River. And could we capture that in a collaborative effort and use it for drinking water to our residents and both Savage residents? So it's a great public-private partnership. We got, two public partners that are still at it, us and Savage. The state, we haven't seen them in a while. And Kramer is a huge corporate partner in
The state
discussing.
gave us some money
Yep,
to help us.
yep, we help their operations and they help us. So there we have two intake pumps, and surface water is around 40% of our total water in a year. It fluctuates, less surface water in the summer and more surface water in the winter, simply because we try to keep that surface water steady. So I kind of introduced both sources of water to you in a historical sense. We developed the groundwater first and the surface water second. Operationally wise, it kind of works the exact opposite now. We baseline with surface water, we keep that plant going steady, and we modulate with the groundwater plant up and down and on and off to fill the towers. So we have two treatment plants, two similar but totally different treatment processes that happen on the water treatment plant site down on River Ridge Boulevard. Not going to get into it, but the two different sources go into two different plants and they combine at the Clearwell. Clearwell is a 7 million gallon underground storage facility that we pump out of into the system. Our operators, in the age of labor shortage and things, operators are getting hard to find. All our operators are licensed by the Department of Health on the drinking water side and the pollution control on the sanitary side. So getting them, usually, they don't come with licenses usually. You usually have to develop your people. And the higher the license, the more they go towards the plant or towards water treatment plants in general. And they're unique individuals. They have to be very well mechanically inclined, but also understand the biology and the chemistry and all that of the water system to make that work. So they take great pride in providing safe and reliable water, and I think that weighs heavy on their shoulders at times. All our operators are on call. We basically have a pager rotation, even though it's not a pager anymore. That's old term. But about once a quarter, every operator is on call, and like I said, the surface water treatment plant is on all the time. The groundwater treatment plant's going off and on and modulating, even on weekends. So we have 2 FTEs at the plant for water treatment plant operators. COVID did really point out we are on a thin line for staffing at the water treatment plant. So any additional FTEs in Public Works, I think that would be Brian and my greatest fear is something that happens to those individuals down there that would affect our abilities. So.
Yeah. Dan?
Can I delve into that a little bit? How long have we operated with 2 FTEs?
Since 2009.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was,
One.
One.
oh, so we added one in 2000, or an extra one in 2009.
We didn't really add one. We took one away from the field
Oh, and reassigned them in there.
into the plant.
Yeah.
A net add of 1 into the water treatment plant. And prior to 2009, one full-time, how many part-time operated there or worked there?
There's no
None.
part-time.
So one person ran the entire water treatment plant for the city of Burnsville up until 2009.
Yeah, and that was because we only had.
That's a risk.
Yeah, that was
They get hit by-
because we only had groundwater. We added the other one
Right.
because we had the surface
Yeah.
treatment plant.
And so is it, the system's so automated that
No, it's the licensing also.
what does that full-time person, I guess 2 full-time people now, spend most of their day doing?
Like you said, it is fully automated. Most of it is taking samples and adjusting. That totally needs the human element.
Yeah.
To understand what the adjustments will do. And then just general maintenance of,
whole
pumps
plant.
need oil changes, things like that.
You ever
Please
been on
do.
a tour down there?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's pretty
Ryan
cool.
took me down there when I
Yeah.
got elected. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it might have been in my first couple of years or so, then we went down and did a full tour.
Yeah.
Or, it was '09 when the whole water treatment plant expansion,
yeah,
all
the
that.
transition.
We did a tour of the existing
Yeah.
and pointed out some areas that needed some
Yeah.
investment, put it that way. Okay, so we have two, and your concern that you raised was if something happened to one of them, or both of them, I suppose, but, or of the folks, that it would put the city in a predicament.
Yeah, because they have to be trained, they have to be licensed.
So
And
what
that's
we
a
did during,
process.
COVID's an example. So what we did during COVID, the two primary operators, we separated them on separate days, separate schedules. And then we took two people from the field and added each one to their shift. Now, did that hurt us in the field and doing maintenance in the field? Yes, it hurts us in doing maintenance in the field, but at that time, that was probably the appropriate,
Bigger priority,
yeah,
yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah,
My concern is the licensing. How long does it take for them to be licensed?
So it's kind of like the whole state system. You have to be in it for so many years before you can test it.
Yeah.
And things like that. Really, you're looking at 5 to 7, and they got to be committed.
Yeah.
Because they can stop at any time.
Yeah,
You know.
that's part of the pressures.
yeah.
So 5 to 7 years of experience to be able to do
Be
certain
licensed.
things within the water
Yeah.
treatment plant, like testing
Yeah.
and adjusting
Yep.
Because there's
levels
a
that affect the
biological and
output
chemistry.
flavor.
Because there's biology and chemistry involved.
Are both of those folks have been there since 2000, so they're far
2000.
surpassed the 5 to 7 years. But when you added that second person in '09, how long, did they have to wait 5 to 7 years before they could then do what the other person was able to do?
No, so you can basically work under the license of the other person.
Oh.
So,
Shared license.
Until they were able to get their license.
Right.
So one supervises the other is how that
Yeah.
works.
So I always
Yep,
have to have
so-
one
The
person with
license,
the experience
yeah.
there. You could then have other people, but you always have to have at least one that's licensed. and has that
credentials.
experience. Okay.
yep, I think at one time, that was a previous push of mine and the other water superintendent. We had one Class A operator, and that was the superintendent.
Is that Linda?
Now we, yeah. Now we have 3 operators, including the superintendent, who are A operators. So we made it, so we're working our way there, to being more resilient.
Yeah,
Having some depth, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Ryan?
Our biggest risk is the lack of redundancy.
Yeah.
There's just, when you got two, I mean, we've had times where there was, there's just one out there, someone's off for a week, we have one person out there, and if we have an incident, there just is another person out there. If we had the third, we'd have the supervisor, then one in charge of surface water, one in charge of groundwater, and then they'd be versed in what they're doing. And, I mean, right now, it's more just putting out fires. We're not proactively doing much out there with just the two that we have. That's
And the
just,
other thing, 9/11 taught us a great deal why redundancy was necessary, especially also when water was critical and it was a target,
that's critical, yeah.
yeah, on an
Yeah,
everyday
it's kind of-
basis.
Kind of a necessary.
And I know Tony's looked to try to get a third person into the plant, and you just can't do it full-time, and we just can't support it out in the field to lose that resource there all the time. So that's a basic situation we're hanging on.
Yeah.
But there isn't much redundancy there.
Yeah.
Like you said you're working your way there. You're cross-training a third person now, but they're not necessarily assigned to the water treatment plant full-time. They're just being trained, I guess, and integrated and cross-trained in it so they can be a backup.
Yep, so each individual operator has that pager, and they're basically in charge of the plant at that time. But a lot of the questions go to the more licensed operators, the guys that know it. But the more you share all the knowledge, the easier it is on those few operators that know a lot, to get some time away and,
In the wintertime, they each spend a week down there.
yep, so, yeah, obviously we can pull people away from the field in the wintertime, and that's when we do a lot of our cross-training.
And they say you spend a week down there, is it like the firemen that go in and they're living there, spending overnight?
No.
Or they're just,
Just their normal 8-hour shift.
gotcha.
per week.
And is it monitored 24/7? But it's on call, so the automation
Yeah.
runs it in the off hours, call it, you know, overnight when the water demand is lower and we're not staffing somebody there 24/7.
No, we are a business day operation.
Gotcha.
And I remember when we upgraded all of that down at the plant, and we put all of the new systems, software systems, so that you can operate it off-site when something went wrong.
Yeah, it's called SCADA, that whole system.
Yeah,
is.
the
And
SCADA
Jeff
system.
does have a slide
Yeah,
on that.
and that drove the reason why we also put fiber in, so all of that is connected throughout the
Yeah.
city.
So we
Because-
have made a conscious effort in our technology to not increase our staffing. How about that? Why we put so much effort into SCADA.
Yeah.
And it being able to do call outs and things
Yeah.
like that.
So Jeff, let me ask you a
Yeah,
question.
Dan, G,
If you have someone on vacation and the other person goes down for whatever reason, what's the backup plan?
One of those other operators that's pretty well licensed from the field, we take them.
You'll take them out of the field to do it?
Yep.
Okay. I'd just like to know that when I turn on the faucet, we'll actually have water.
But that person might be the person who's supposed to be doing locating that day,
I know.
and all of a sudden, we
Yeah,
know we
no,
can't do
I
these
I
other
get that you're
critical
taking away from
functions.
other critical jobs
Yeah.
that we have to take care of as well.
Yep.
well, this is the reason why we need a staffing plan, so we understand and can help.
Okay, so that's our, if you have no more questions, that's our biggest operational challenge. We'll continue on. Distribution system has 2 underground reservoirs, that one at the plant, which is considered the clear well, the one out front here, that is a reservoir. And then we have 3 towers, Heather Hills, Colonial, and Buck Hill. 255 miles of water main, over 2,500 public fire hydrants. And we are the operational check for the fire department. So we flush hydrants, both for water quality's sake and for operational checking, in the spring and the fall. Spring is full through the system. Every 2,500 hydrants is touched in the spring. And in the fall, it's cul-de-sacs, dead ends, things that do have water quality concerns.
So Jeff and Ryan, so under the ground, we have 255 miles of pipes. And then how many miles of road? Because I remember you all telling me how many miles of road above the ground that we take care of.
About the same.
Yep, it's right about the same.
About the same,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
255 miles throughout the whole city. So it's good for people to understand how much we take care above the ground and then below the ground. Stuff below the ground people don't see and they forget about it. And then, of course, all of these other things that have to do with fire hydrants, that's 2,500 fire hydrants. And then, of course, one of the things that we've had a couple of incidents and was the pressure zones.
So we have 14 pressure zones. I'd say a typical city has 2 to 3 pressure zones.
But we're
Because of our
on the-
topography, we
Yeah.
have 14. And I like to use the analogy, it's like trying to make a waterbed work on a set of steps.
Yeah, because I remember in southwest Burnsville, when they didn't have enough pressure down in southwest Burnsville, because it's going up, especially,
So, and what we don't
But
want to
we-
do is we don't want to let it all slide downhill and have to
Yeah.
pump it back uphill.
Yeah.
It's an incredible waste of energy.
Yeah.
So. On the sanitary side, we like to frame it in collections and conveyance and treatment. We do the collection and conveyance. MCES does the treatment. So on our collection and conveyance side, we have 211 miles of sanitary pipe. Because of gravity, you can skip certain sections of street, basically, with your sanitary pipe. The number one goal we want there is when you flush the toilet, it all goes bye-bye. So we do extensive cleaning of sanitary sewers.
You have something like this for pets, by chance?
Not yet.
Not yet, no. And then we have 14 points where we do have to pump the sewer back uphill to get it to go back downhill. So we have 14 lift stations. They're incredible maintenance point in the sanitary system. So they're cleaned twice annually, and they have rounds during the week. So, like I said, treatment is handled in the metropolitan area on a metropolitan basis through Metropolitan Council of Environmental Services. Burnsville, Savage, Egan, Bloomington all convey at the Seneca plant and Egan, and is treated there. Our portion is charged to us approximately $5 million a year, and we distribute that in our rates to our residents.
That map had, if you don't mind, it had some highlighted.
So the colored sections are the sections that don't flow by gravity.
Yeah.
And to make it easier, sometimes we do go outside of Burnsville.
Yeah, I see we're down in
Yep.
Lakeville down
So
there.
we're out in Lakeville, out in Apple Valley.
Yeah.
Some of their sewage comes to us because it's the natural gravity point. And then we have agreements for them, and then we pump it through our system.
At least we know where those points are.
It's when our
And
Lakeville friends
how
say
much.
they're true. When somebody complains that Lakeville's pooping on us, it's they're we do accept their waste.
So Lakeville literally pays 2/3 of
Yeah,
the
look at
cost
that.
of that lift station where Lakeville goes in. So we own it,
Yeah.
but they're literally paying 2/3 of the cost of the maintenance, and that's right by Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
kind of a scary deal there.
Really close.
And there's a lot there. At least Apple Valley, there's not that much, but Lakeville.
And flushable wipes really aren't flushable, are they, Jeff?
Yeah, where's the flushable white pitch?
Well,
That's a good point,
That
Melanie.
Lakeville
It's-
one is the one that was clogging up. when
that's-
people were-
Yeah, it
I
was.
thought
People were,
that was
uh,
Lakeville that was clogging us up
Yeah.
for
They
a while.
were flushing the rags down, and that's the one where we had to replace both the pumps. If we get about 8 hours, that's about how much we can store there before it would start going into the lake. It's,
Yep.
Ouch.
yeah, that's how that SCADA system is so important.
Yeah.
And
knowing
that's
it's-
why it's nice that we have that fiber connection, that SCADA
Yep.
system, because it gives us good, true information.
But it has to work.
So, and it was nice on September 17th when we had the storm come through. Our first operators were the ones that were dispatched out by the lift stations. Lift stations telling them, I don't have power. This is my level. I need a generator or we're going to overflow. So they were our first operators in. And then they couldn't get to the lift stations, and they're calling the street people in to get the streets clean, and that, and our friends in fire, or police and fire, they're the ones that tell us it's not working the way it should, so. Then we also have, like I said, we have made a conscious effort in technology to save on operational services, basically, and staffing levels. So we do a lot in asset management, we do a lot in SCADA, GIS mapping, every single call that's been made for a long time that requires an action is tracked in a work order management system, and a lot of our maintenance activities. So all those 25 hydrants, when they're flushed, every single one of them is included in the work order that we know we touched that one and it's operational for the year. So, and then it helps us also on capital. When we tell you it's at the end of life, it is actually at the end of life, and it's in a defensible system. That is it actually at the end of its useful life.
We used to do a lot more full-scale replacements of everything. Now we do a lot more targeting. because of the system we got. And I'd like to give kudos to Greg there too with technology really, IT really helps us. I like to pick on Tom Venables a lot, but him and IT really, we couldn't do without him on
Yeah.
this technology thing, so.
And that's what people don't understand, that Public Work does a lot with technology to manage all of the assets that belong to the people. And it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
day in and day out.
And Sewer and Water, utilities has been leading the charge from Public Works on use of these systems. They've embraced it fastest and are utilizing it to the greatest extent, so.
Would you say that the investment in SCADA is pretty common by cities around like Minnesota or the region?
Yes,
Is everybody sort of going to that technology when they can afford to, or when they, in their cap plan or whatever?
I'd say it's very common. You know, obviously, we've made a greater investment to save us on a different end. Now, there are cities that, hey, that's a lot of money, we can just have the person sit in the plant at night. And that's how they decide to operate. We don't feel we have that luxury. So we filter capital money to technology.
Sure. And just to protect that network, because that's obviously relying on that fiber backbone and communication. That's obviously critical to keep working. Otherwise, you lose the eyes of the technology gives you, right?
Yep.
Then you have to manually go inspect if there's any kind of outage for any period of time. That's
So we have had outages, and it's compared to what we're used to, it's flying in the dark, literally. So what we're used to, knowing the system, what's operating, what's running, being able to check it at any time, and you don't have those luxuries when SCADA is out or the fiber backbone is out. So we do go back to a very manual mode. Okay, this is what we're running. Go down, do physical checks that it's still running, and like that. So
And this happened the day before the September 17th storm. We were sitting in the office and it got hit, and utility guys are out driving around, making sure stuff was working.
Then it got hit again.
Yes, that was the
times in a
second
row.
one. That was the
Or that's right, that was.
That was the second one.
we also do a lot of it is public calls. We have the majority of our calls from residents are meter and pressure and in-home plumbing systems. We do a lot of that. When you call, you're gonna get Tammy at the front desk, and she's gonna walk you through troubleshooting. If it's, I got flagged for a leak in my system, that I have high water usage, or, I have no pressure, or I have way too much pressure. I have water quality concerns that aren't taste and odor, and that quite often goes back to the plumbing system within the house. We basically tell them nobody in the neighborhood is doing it, we walk them through troubleshooting, and sometimes we have to go out and help them. And then water shutoffs. So if you're replacing your main valve or something, we go off and shut the water off before the plumber, turn it back on after the plumber. A lot of the irrigation systems are off and on at the beginning of the year and end of the year. And as Brian said, our utility locates, we're almost 3,000 for the half of the year, 2021. And that, I don't want to say it's a fire call, but you have 24 hour or 48 hours to mark your utilities or you're negligent. So we are getting to those on time, no matter if we have to stretch resources from other areas, so. We do get some water quality concerns. I like to tell you it's about one a week. That's about what we get for water quality concerns. And like I said, a lot of those are in-home plumbing issues. And some of it is taste and odor and things like that. And then we always have utility emergencies, both public and private. We are there to help our residents and businesses and things like that. And quite often they don't understand what they're responsible for, so we help them out an awful lot. And then we have our own emergencies. So, like I like to tell Brian, give us a good emergency, we work our best on emergencies.
Two biggest
Thank you.
ones are sewer backups and water main breaks.
Yeah,
So from here, I'll get into taste and odor, but if you got any questions on utilities 101, we kind of talked it through as we did it.
yeah. I think we talked through while you were presenting.
So taste and odor concerns that came up in the community survey, indicates room for improvement, and obviously Brian and I want to provide the best, and the whole utilities division wants to provide the best, water possible. And I like to frame it it is a capital thing. This is no different, you see, schools, the water, and the roads. We know how to fix roads, right? It's construction, it's dollars. Taste and odor, water, it's the same thing. It's construction, it's dollars. So it's decision of what's the appropriate point for our community. So what we have done, we built a very cost-conscious surface water treatment plant. As you can, if you've ever been in there, the groundwater treatment plant has terrazzo floors, the surface water plant has painted concrete floors. So it's very utilitarian in nature. So, and I'd say it left room for improvement to address taste and odor, but did not address taste and odor with the design. So since then, we've added both powder activated carbon and granular activated carbon. The powder activated carbon is really fine ground powder that gets added to the source water and travels up to the water treatment plant with the source water. Granular activated carbon is more of the bigger chunks that is in the filter media as it filters through the plant. So we've added both of those. And if you want to think about it as a continuum to address taste and odor, your first is going to be both your carbons, your powder activated carbon, your granular activated carbon. Next, you're going to step up to ozone systems or peroxide and UV systems. And on the very far end of addressing taste and odor, you're maybe going to do is reverse osmosis or something like that. So we are still on the lower end.
Dante has a question.
What does Los Angeles use to filter or process their water?
Good question. I can answer for Minneapolis and St. Paul.
That's fine. Minneapolis has got
Minneapolis
water.
Minneapolis is powder activated carbon, granular activated carbon. Same thing. They do have a couple of membrane plants fooling around with the higher technology stuff.
got some pretty enviable tasting water. I hear more compliments than I've ever heard complaints, and I know they've been working in surface water their entire history, right? So they've, I think if anybody could master it, they've mastered it because they've dealt with only surface water, from what I understand.
Yep, so St. Paul, they are redoing their main plant, is it McConnell plant? Sorry, I don't exactly know the name. But they're doing $600 million of investment into that plant, and they are going to ozone, away from the carbons.
And if the carbons have proven to work like they do in Minneapolis, because their water is, what I hear from people who drink that water all the time versus drinking Burnsville water, they think Minneapolis tastes a lot better. If that's the case and they're using the same carbon, powder activated and granular that we are, is St. Paul going away from those same two into the, and did they have a drinking taste problem in St. Paul? Do you know, any idea what drove them to make that investment and change?
No, I probably can't answer for them.
They just want to spend the money, I suppose. But, so if Minneapolis uses the same process, why is our water not as good as Minneapolis? Do we need more horsepower in that system?
I'd say they probably don't have like the dead ends and things that we deal with
Yeah.
in our system. that probably drives some of these concerns.
It's definitely, I mean, I've experienced it myself. The water that I used to have in a cul-de-sac home at the corner of two cul-de-sacs, so two dead ends, is not nearly as good as what I'm experiencing not being on a dead end on Traveler's Trail, where I'm just along the line. Water, taste, and odor is worlds different where I'm at today versus where we were. And so I definitely can see the challenge that we have with all the cul-de-sacs and all the dead ends, et cetera. That's tough to work around. There's not much you can do. I mean, it's just going to sit there, right? Yeah, I don't know. I just know, we know that the community has spoken. It's a problem. It's been a problem ever since the water treatment plant opened up, or the expansion. It's never changed. It's never gotten any, I'd say it's gotten a little better because we did add this. So it did noticeably get better. Clearly, the community's still saying it's a problem. And what we don't know is the feedback we got, was that primarily from folks who live like where I used to live, in a dead end, or is it from across the board? It's really hard to pinpoint. Do you live on a cul-de-sac or on, along a main line type of thing? And where in the city do you live as far as proximity to the treatment plant? So I did notice a difference further out, closer to the plant, tasting more, what chemical do we put in there to kill off the bacteria?
Chlorine?
Chlorine, yeah, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to say without verifying. Yeah, the chlorine taste was stronger when I was closer, like at our office, which is very close, versus where I used to live. The chlorine taste wasn't there, just the swampy odor and not necessarily ideal taste was there, but no chlorine.
Yep. And unfortunately, all people are individuals and
Boy, absolutely.
taste it differently.
Agreed, yeah,
So-
I just, and
It's
you
very
just,
subjective.
and I would say that's not a defense that we can make because that's the same sampling applied to Minneapolis water. But I don't hear anybody that lives in Minneapolis ever say that they love their water. They brag about their water. But I never hear anybody say it tastes foul, no matter where they're at in the city.
So Minneapolis also, both Minneapolis and St. Paul are softening. So they don't have quite the whole spectrum of taste that we have.
Yeah.
Of just filtered water that we have.
So that's another element difference in. So that it's not just these two carbons, but they also,
Before the carbons, there's a different treatment process.
that takes out some of the hardness.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of hardness in our water. In fact,
Yeah.
we go off the charts on the 1 to 10 scale from hardness testing from soft water installation folks. We're like 11 or a 12 in Burnsville because it is incredibly scaly and hard. And so it's always a challenge with, which eats up our softeners a lot. But I didn't realize that the hardness would have that much impact on the flavor.
Ryan, because that was one of the discussions back then, whether we do something with the hard water, but the cost was very high. So, Brian,
There's so many variables.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, in my opinion, I don't think it's just fair to say someone in Minneapolis, or everyone in Minneapolis feels that their water is great, and here it's not good. I don't know that that's a fair comparison. Obviously, you can have your opinion, but they have chemists and biologists on staff working at the plant. It's probably a 60 to 100 person operation. Obviously, we got two.
yeah,
It's a much more sophisticated.
Yep.
It is, and there's, when your customer base is gonna be that much larger, you're gonna have some operational, hopeful enhancements that you can make, to it. And yes, we're using similar, procedures, but, I'm quite certain it's not the exact same situation. I do think there's a significant improvement in the water since '09. I know it was quite bad. As if Linda was here, she would tell you that we opened that up at the exact wrong time, the worst algae bloom they'd had. So I definitely feel that it is significantly improved since then. Obviously, the people have spoken on the survey, and there is room for improvement. I'm not saying there isn't. I don't know if comparing us to Minneapolis, that,
They're sort of the benchmark because they've been doing it, surface water for so long, and I use that as a comparison, but, well, you live in Minneapolis, you taste the difference too. But I think, I'm trying to get to, what do we do about it? Because I don't want to continue to hear the complaints. I don't want to continue to taste the flavor problem. It's like, what can we do? And so I'm maybe delving into a little bit of your presentation, trying to compare us to Minneapolis as let's call it the benchmark. If we could get to that level, we might consider ourselves in pretty good shape and we probably would see a dramatic reduction in the complaints of the taste, right? So how do we get to that point where we can improve the taste enough to reduce the flavor and odor issues? Because they've never gone away. They got better, but they still are here.
And when you do that, then we need to also understand the cost that's affiliated with it, because we've done some of that in the past. We looked at the hardness, what do we do if we took some of that hardness out, what was the cost implications and all of that. So all of that, if we're going to take care of all of this, we need to understand the cost so that we could plan for how we get that
agree.
done.
You need to know the cost, and I will say, I agree with Ryan, not all of Burnsville thinks we have bad water. We don't think we have bad water. In my house, I've never had anyone complain about our water at our house. I think we have pockets where there may be some issues, and some of those are dead-end issues like you're talking about, and things that we can address, but it's not the entire city that feels that way.
Doesn't matter. The people who are complaining are the only ones that matter.
Dan, I understand it doesn't matter, but you can't do a blanket, everybody in Burnsville doesn't like their water, but everybody in Minneapolis loves their water, because that's not true.
No, I didn't say that.
You pretty
I
much
said
did.
everybody that I know in Minneapolis, which is a lot of people, have bragged about and never complained about their water. In fact, I've asked them about it.
I came from Minneapolis, I've drank
And
for 45
everybody I
years,
talked
get
to in
it.
Burnsville, with few exceptions, say, oof, the water.
But you
It's
can't say all
not
Burnsville
good.
does not like their water.
I didn't
Because that's
say
not true.
all of Burnsville. I said the people I speak to, and I cited an example where I lived,
Okay.
that it was really, really bad, and where I currently live, where it's much better. But it's not, that has nothing to do with the survey. I'm responding to the survey.
I understand.
Okay, so we are at the bottom end of addressing taste and odor with the carbons. What we have left as options for us, if we want to go further, is within our current operating structure, we can address maybe the powder activated carbon we're using is not the best. We do a performance spec, but we also rate that performance based on cost. So sometimes the lower performing carbon actually gets in better because it's cheaper cost, which makes it, we use more carbon, and then it blanks off our filters and causes us operational issues. We can go to strictly performance-based spec on that powder activated carbon, which would get us the best performing carbon. That currently would fit within the rate structure that's there. That's not a big issue. Ryan and I can make that change on our end. On the spectrum of addressing taste and odor, what we have left above us is what would work is ozone. We do not think peroxide and UV would work simply because of our hard water. We would scale our UV lamps and they wouldn't operate for us for very long. So what we have left to address our water is ozone, and then reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is
Before you
very, very
proceed,
expensive.
Jeff, Kara has a question or a comment. Kara?
And this will get into what you're discussing currently. So, you know, the reason why we're even looking at this is because we consistently get information back from our residents on surveys and that type of thing about the water quality and how it tastes and how it smells and the hardness factor and, you know, how it's difficult on their dishwashers and their washing machines and, you know, other appliances. And so I mean, that's why we're looking at looking into this, because it doesn't matter, you know, Minneapolis doesn't matter, and also like what we think doesn't matter on this. Like, it just comes up on the survey. So they're asking us to address it. That's why you're given the presentation to see if we can. So on the ozone, because that looks like at least a possibility. The reverse osmosis looks out of the realm of possibility. Would that take care of the hardness along with the odor and taste?
No, we have not addressed hardness in our plant. So we have a huge private investment in the city in private softeners. And for us to take that on, that would be a huge undertaking of us taking on the softening and individual residents not having to do that. So.
And most softeners don't intercept water for your faucet in the kitchen. It's just the bathroom.
No, it's just their hot water.
Yeah, and it's just the hot water. It's not the cold. So it's
Say, what are you saying? I couldn't hear
your
you.
water softener doesn't intercept the water in your kitchen sink per se, the cold water.
Yeah.
Kitchen sink, it's usually just the hot water supply for the bathrooms and your bathrooms, right? So it, you're basically running
Is it a
hard
function
water
that-
out of your kitchen sink tap water, which is usually the feed for the refrigerator, for instance. But then you can put a carbon filter in your refrigerator to help, take a lot of those issues out, which works well. Maybe we need some sort of filter program that we can provide.
Yeah, Melanie.
Could we have Jeff finish his presentation a little bit, and then
Yeah.
we can get some direction from the
Yeah.
council?
Yeah, let's have Jeff continue.
So I didn't really have much left. So on the spectrum we're at,
Thanks, Melanie.
He was at the end, Melanie.
so my sense is that you want something, and I guess I haven't really been super busy. I wasn't originally intended to do this presentation, but I would say a feasibility study on ozone systems would be our next step. Obviously, the feasibility study can be done within our existing rate structure. I cannot say a ozone system can be done within our current rate structure. But if you want to see how much it would cost to go to the next level of addressing taste and odor, a feasibility study on ozone would probably be our next step.
Yeah, and I would also say that when we continue with this, we also need to let our residents and business know what we're doing and what are the possible implications on a cost side. So everybody is not surprised that they know we're going to address taste and odor, and here's the process, here's what we're going to be looking at, and then here are the possible implications on the rate charges.
Just
Yeah.
point
Ryan.
out that the improved powdered carbon, powdered activated carbon could definitely make a difference. Right now, we are going more based upon most cost effective.
Yeah.
Like Jeff said, we usually only get maybe one call a week on water quality. It's not
Yeah.
this pervasive thing like it was in '09. But now, obviously, with the results from the survey are saying, well, there is a different thing. So I think we're talking a 5-figure increase in cost for the powdered activating carbon to improve that quality, which we can absorb. And then I think we could do a report that will be based mostly on ozone, but we could also delve into just what are other options, in
Yeah.
a little more.
I think when we just let our people know if we're going to do an improved carbon process, this is what it's going to be.
Experiment.
And if we're going to go to the ozone, this is what it's going to be. And so they're well-informed.
Would that clean up the taste for the entire city, or would we still end up with pockets?
It would definitely improve it for the entire
The
city.
entire city? Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. So
On
ozone
the carbon
base,
quality side or on the ozone side?
the ozone side.
On the ozone
So-
side, okay?
But not the carbon.
Carbon is trying to absorb the taste and odor, so they still get through. ozone is chemically breaking the taste and odor compounds, and filtering them out. So,
So we'll have no taste in our water?
well, you're still gonna get, you gotta remember, majority of our water is still
I know.
groundwater. So I'd say the flavor will go back more towards groundwater.
Well, and then people were
That's what
complaining
caused the
about
problem to begin with.
the irony flavor of the water at one point.
Yeah.
I
And what,
don't know if this is gonna make.
yeah. What peop-
I always caution Ryan, I'm like, maybe you don't wanna go back because we're gonna get calls the other way,
Yeah,
of,
Yeah, that was the 2009 issue we had, because it tasted more like the groundwater when we introduced it to the system. Councilmember Schultz had a good point. It's the hard water that's really causing the problem in our city, for at least for appliances and all the different things that we go through. Water heaters, or the bottoms fall out of them, and after 5 years and things like that. And
yeah. I think, well, it appears to me that you have sort of a plan, and then for me, it's the cost factor. Yes, Melanie?
Madam Mayor, I'd look for some direction or consensus from the council on what you are asking staff to do with this.
Well, what I am hearing, and the council can correct me if I'm wrong in understanding, is how do we address the taste and odor for our residents? Because that's what comes out on the survey. That's what you're saying, Dan Kay.
Yes, and I think the recommendation to look at ozone and start looking at how we adopt that into the capital improvement plan and over time and how we're gonna fund it
Yeah.
is something we have to discuss, because I don't see any other solutions.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to also understand when we look at the carbon quality and the ozone quality, what would that do? Simply because prior to having the surface plant, we had a lot of iron, and when we're pumping up from, what people think if you're using groundwater, there isn't all of this other minerals that we're dealing with. There's a whole lot of minerals that we're dealing with and we're treating so that when it's distributed, we're not tasting the iron and all of the other things that are coming through. So I think something that we need to let people know if we're doing that, and if it's the ozone, but I'd like to see the cost implications. Vince?
I think we need to maybe dig into the question a little deeper. If I remember correctly, was it 51 people responded to this, or was it 51%?
so 2012 was 51%, 2020 or 2021 was 63%.
What was it, 63%
Getting
what?
worse.
Well, I would want to note that there
That
are
was-
different measurements.
Yeah,
so
those are the two different, they may be actually pretty close to the
And-
same, but it
and-
just depends how.
Right.
I don't wanna
So
discount
we have
the,
a score of 63. It's not 63%.
Okay.
So, which is below, so, once again, we know,
It's not what we wanted, right?
we're looking for a little better.
I don't wanna discount the people that are saying this, but I think context matters, and we've got a increase of new residents moving into Burnsville for the
say.
first time, and if you're coming
From
from
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis to Burnsville,
Yeah,
that's gonna be a bit of a culture shock, because I lived in Uptown and it was delicious water. But I think it would be more cost-effective and worth exploring this question a little bit deeper before exploring a $5 million ozone system, before we really fully understand what this is on a citywide basis. And our communication teams does an awesome job getting feedback on all of our platforms, Facebook and otherwise. So I don't know if that makes more sense at this point, just to understand that a little bit better.
okay. Melanie, you are
Thinking.
thinking, and I can see it. You're furrowing your,
Well, I'm hearing a couple different things, so I'm just,
well, Vince is saying, let's pause and let's look at this question and really understand what it is that we're doing.
nope,
And I'm not saying let's spend 5 million right now.
No,
I'm just saying we need to start the
understand.
process. I think, I'm saying I would like to move forward with looking, really to Vince's point, starting the process. Because we're not gonna make this decision quickly, It's gonna take a lot of time. There's gonna be a lot of information coming our way before we're at a point where we're making this decision.
Right,
And so,
and that's, I understand those two positions. Guess I'm looking to, do you want us to dig into more of the question and find out the why? Or do you want us to investigate on solutions to try to address the feedback we heard in the survey? Those are two different approaches.
I guess I'm coming at, I want to understand the feedback a little bit better, because if you look at that community survey, I don't remember how many questions it was like 100 questions. That was one question of many, you know, and it could have been an afterthought. What do I think of water? Oh, this, you know, where if we actually have maybe one or two questions that are solely focused on this issue, you might get a different result, but
do we have the ability to
Yeah.
survey monkey the whole city?
I'm going
chance.
to, yeah,
sorry.
while they're thinking about that, Kara, your hand is up.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, the survey question wasn't asking so much, what do you think about the water? It was asking, what do you think needs to improve in Burnsville and people selected water quality? So that is a slight difference. But to Melanie's question on, do we want to look at costs, or do we want to ask residents to define a little more what, you know, how they feel about water quality and what about it they don't like, if they don't like it? I don't see that as an or, I see that as a and. I'm interested in both, because you know, we have to look at what are the costs and what could we possibly do for that. At the same time, we need to check with our residents and see, will that alleviate what they're looking for? Because if it does turn out that the hardness is a bigger issue than the taste and odor, then pursuing ozone or, you know, even charcoal, that doesn't matter. Like that's not really going to address the problem. But if it is taste and odor and that's really what's driving it, then, you know, maybe that is something that ozone then becomes the thing that will solve the issue, or, you know, solve it to a degree that's acceptable by our residents. So I don't see that as a or. I think we need to know both pieces, because if we do go forward, you know, and even with the charcoal that you're talking about, 500,000, is that what I'm hearing? And is that, or what is that per year? I mean, so, and I'm not even asking you to really define that, but I would like that information as well.
I have to agree
Yeah.
with Councilmember Schultz in the sense that we need to figure out what is the problem and fix the
Yeah.
problem, and not just assume it's one thing or the other and
Yeah.
and go from there, because I don't want to spend $5 million to find out they're still complaining when it's done.
Yeah,
Because it's the hard water or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so let's find out what the problem is and
Yeah.
then we'll go from there, you know.
and I agree with Vince, because that's his original
Yeah,
premise.
exactly.
And so let's really find out what truly is the issue. And then we can move forward, because this is a big ticket item.
So
Yeah, Dan Kay.
Did you want to?
I will defer to a council member.
I mean, I'm good with that. I'm going off of what was presented and
Yeah.
suggested that we start taking up that. But to get there, there's a lot of work that needs to be
Yeah.
done, and I'm fine with all the comments and like how we're going to get there. I don't think there's any objection on doing the research to really identify it. I just think it comes down to, I think people are entitled to palatable water that is also safe to drink, to cook, to bathe, et cetera. And it has to be free of detectable taste and odors to the degree that are reasonable. I think what we've learned from our consumers, and I've heard ever since 2009, is it isn't acceptable to everybody, or and we don't know what majority of that is. It's the two different polls that we did indicate it's a problem. It's not a small little isolated problem. It's a very big problem that affects a lot of people in the city. we can dive further and find out just how many that really is, because I'd like to know, too. But I've heard this problem ever since 2009. 12 years of the same thing coming through surveys, feedback, everything. So to me, it's a very well-documented, very well-known problem. I would just like us to finally do something about it. And how we go through the process to get there, I'm good with however we want to proceed. But we've got to do something about it. It's not a new problem. This is year 12 of the same complaint I've heard for 12 straight years. And I've made it myself because I was a recipient of pond scummy smelling, foul tasting water. So bad that our laundry was affected dramatically, and we had to put extra doses of all kinds of stuff in the laundry to try and get the odor out. It was that bad, where we were doing stuff in our home to try and avoid the stinky water in our clothing. I mean, if that sounds rude and objectionable to anybody, that we would actually put out water in the city that would do that, I will tell you that it was that bad. It was not, and we heard it from a lot of neighbors, all saying the same thing. Now, we're past those days. It did get better when we made the investment, but we're not home yet. We're not to the point where we can run a survey and we don't get the water tastes bad or smells bad. And we have to do whatever it takes to get there within reason. I mean, we're not going to spend $100 million per se, but we need to do something.
Okay, Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I mean, that's why we do these
Yeah.
surveys, right? Is we want that feedback, and we want to be able to do something about those areas that we're getting that feedback. What I would suggest is we did a survey. We've got some feedback. We can work with our survey Cobalt and see how we can dig into this question specifically a little bit more, and then how they can advise us on getting feedback, because we want to make sure it's good information and good feedback that we're getting, so we could come back to the council with data on what the next steps are. And Ryan and Jeff, you guys may have some other ideas that we'll need to think about, but, yes, it's feedback from a survey, and we want to make sure we're doing something about it. And, I think by and large, we don't get a ton of complaints about it, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and we want to make sure we are proposing the right remedy.
Yeah. And I think getting more information will help us.
I did find the survey question, and it says, rate the utility service, water and sewer, electricity, et cetera, you use on the following attributes. And the question was drinking water quality, which I think you could interpret as kind of a vague,
Yeah,
probably intentionally vague, but here we are discussing it, so I just wanted to.
yeah. So let's find out a little bit more. What about the
And I
water
think we can
quality?
get our bright consultant engineers and our bright consultant communications people together. And I'm sure they're both interested in answering a few questions before
Yeah.
they put out recommendations as well.
Yeah. Let's start with that point, and then we move forward. The objective is that we address this issue of taste and odor.
Clarity, we're not
Yeah.
starting out trying to evaluate ozone at this point. We're trying to,
No.
we are trying to find out what people are thinking
First,
prior to
and
that.
then,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's,
Please share with the council how you go about collecting that data. I'd like to be involved in that. I mean, from this, if we want to go out with a bigger sample. I'm all for that, too. Let's do a bigger, broader sample of the whole city.
We'll
If we're gonna
report
do
back
that.
to the council, these are kind of
process.
a new directive of the council, so we'll have to go back and figure out how that's gonna, and what we'll do, and we'll come back and provide an update. Happy to.
so let me ask this question because you all have a lot on your plates right now. Tell us how much or what is going to be removed from your plate or put to the back burner when you put this forward.
So Madam Mayor and Council, I'll want to talk with Ryan and Jeff about that, and we'll want to cost out, kind of what we expect the investment will be, so we're going into it eyes wide open.
Yeah.
I don't have that at this
Yeah,
moment.
because the other is that we're coming into winter, And you have a lot of work to do around the wintertime with snow removal and everything else. But you also have a lot of maintenance work that you have to do on an ongoing basis. So it'll be good to understand, because I do know that we are short. And so, on staffing. So I just look at things that come before, when any organization, you have so much on your plate, you add a little bit more, what's going to get pushed on those priorities? So let's make sure that, you make us aware that we're causing something here to happen, and
Well, I think you're referring to a timetable, Madam Mayor, and I haven't said anything about timetable. Clearly, I'm impassioned about this because I've listened to it for 12 years, but it has to fit within the work that you're doing. It has to align with the other priorities. We've dealt with it for 12 years. We're not looking for, I'm not expecting
you're not
an
saying this
instant
is
cure.
urgent.
Yeah, I said earlier, we're
It's
not voting on
it's
5 million. This is a long process
Yeah.
with a lot of data collection, a lot of work to be done, but
it's
I mean,
important, but it's not urgent.
correct.
Yeah.
It's important to get done.
Yeah.
We've dealt with it for 12 years. We'll deal with it however long it takes to get it done, to put in whatever the council majority wants to do to mitigate the flavor if that's what we end up doing.
But just make sure, I know that our staff is really busy with a whole lot of things, and, I don't want people to get burned out. We don't need to lose people. Okay,
Good. We're good.
okay, great. Thank you
Jeff.
so much. And thank you for all the work, because this is an important product. It's the only product that we produce in this city, because
is.
we
It's our
do
one product.
service. We provide service, but this is one product that we provide, so.
Received a text from our utility superintendent, and he says, please offer a tour to any of the council members and of the plant. He'd love to be able to answer the questions out there. So if you want to schedule a tour down there.
That would be great.
We would.
Yeah,
be
because
happy
I
to
don't
have
know
you.
how many people have not, but
And it doesn't
yeah,
have to be
I
the whole
learned
council at
a
the
whole lot.
Yep.
Just taking tours of our plant, going on ride-alongs, being involved in the service that you provide. It allows me to see that.
Offer remains open.
Yeah, good, thank you. Your work is not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Melanie, and this is our legislative priorities.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council, I prepared a PowerPoint, but I don't know that that's necessary, so if it's acceptable to the council, I'll just walk through what we've pulled together and get some council feedback.
Okay,
We refined our legislative priorities a couple years ago and really said we want to focus on 3 primary priorities, and then we have a handful that we will monitor. Our current top priorities, of those 3, 2 of them have been achieved. So the fire prevention district legislation was approved, as was our special legislation for a Center Village TIF district. So with that, we would recommend that those 2 items be removed from our legislative priorities. Of course, we'll still continue to monitor these and implement these tools, or come to the council to implement the tools if and when it becomes appropriate. The third item is freeway landfill remediation. That continues to be an outstanding item. Staff would recommend that it remain as a top legislative priority. And then, as we looked at our supporting positions, for council consideration, staff has suggested perhaps we want to elevate the position of local control. We have talked a lot with the council. I've talked a lot with the council over the last 1 to 2 years about the push to remove local control for municipalities, and we expect that push to continue in 2022 legislative session. So if the council's interested, we could elevate that topic as a top priority legislative item, which would really entail no change in position. The council's articulated what's important to you, and so it would just give staff the ability to advocate more actively on those items.
I would agree, local control should be moved up as a priority.
I think we've always had that.
Yeah. We've been putting it as a supporting position, but I think we need to be more forthcoming and proactive with local control. Any objections?
I guess I would want to know what that means, other than just saying local control. I mean, is there tangible, how do you make that tangible?
Councilmember, within our current priorities, we give examples of that, and that includes, I'm gonna just pull it up here really quick. Local control in the area of land use,
Yeah.
and that is, such as, how
And
we can
zoning.
just zone and,
Yeah.
as well as rights of way, and our ability to manage those rights of way in a way that makes sense for public benefit. And then not only creating additional revenue sources such as franchise fees, but maintaining those tools that the council has at their disposal. Doesn't mean you have to use them, it means you have those available.
Yeah.
On the converse, or on the opposite side, it really, opposes legislation that erodes the fundamental principle of local control. Unfunded state mandates, ability to manage your rights of way, or removing authority related to zoning, comp planning, utility or transportation planning. So essentially, it's allowing our local boards to make the decisions that we feel is best for our communities.
Thank you.
There is a,
Yeah, there.
sometimes we like footballing things back to the state, like tobacco.
Yeah, no smoking.
I mean, we like local control when it's convenient for us. In most of the cases, I like it, but there are some things that we turn right around and go, well, no, we don't really want to do that one. That's better off at the state level, right? So
Well,
it's kind of a double-edged sword.
But I think the smoking thing was more an uncompetitive situation. You didn't want to be the only city surrounded by people that.
Yeah, it's like
had
local option
smoking
sales
and were
tax.
non-smoking.
You don't want to, be an island.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the smoking is because
I live
it's a health issue that's for everybody. So if one
Yes.
community had a ban on smoking and the other one didn't,
Right.
you know.
You just
and
drive
it's-
border
the thing is,
activity.
Yeah. There are some things that is appropriate, but in our background, I think staff had put together a great background on it and the status and the legislative considerations. So I think that's, yeah. And during this conference that we had, local control was what people were advocating for.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to housing, and everybody with the folks who talked about
Oh, yeah.
affordable housing and accessible housing. It's like, what?
And certain initiatives that
Yeah.
are
And then they
overpowering the
want, yeah,
discussion
and
right now
then
around
they
the
want to
country.
take away local control and put it in the hands of the legislature.
Right.
And they don't, and every community is not the same when it comes to land use.
Right.
I think you're gonna see residential zoning getting swooped up by the state at some point, like what
Well, that's the
Minneapolis is
reason
doing.
why we want to make sure that we fight for local control in all of this. We're about land use and zoning.
I like it.
Yeah, okay,
It was more for the benefit of the viewing audience than
Yeah.
anything. So.
okay.
That's very good. I like doing that. Yeah, that's how we have better discussion for them to understand what
Yeah.
it is we're talking about.
What it is.
Explain it to me
yeah,
like I'm 5.
Yeah, what it is, yeah, okay,
Then sit down and listen.
okay.
Madam Mayor and Council, we have 2 other items that are on our monitoring that we suggest should remain on supporting or monitoring position. That's our host community economic development program. That is very specific to Burnsville, and it's provided a great economic infrastructure reinvestment tool for us as a host community for landfills. The second item is an aggregate mining fee. This has been a supporting position for many years. Again, very specific, I would say, to Burnsville. Ryan can probably speak to any specifics about how it would apply to Burnsville, but we've had this in place for a number of years.
And you're not saying that this gets elevated, you're saying keep it on the supporting. But don't you have one more that you want to add to the priority?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and I saw our fire chief
Yep,
come
he's
in.
here.
And so, oh, there he is. I didn't see you sneak in, so I'm gonna turn it over
Sneak
to
in from.
Chief
I saw him leaving.
Jungman.
Yeah, no, this is important, and we've had this on our supporting position for a long time, so now is a good time to talk about elevating it to a priority. Chief, floor is yours.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, and Melanie, thanks for the opportunity. It's EMS regulation in Minnesota is very complicated and is an outlier compared to the other 49 states. We actually worked with the Minnesota Fire Chiefs Association and the University of Minnesota Resilient Communities Project or program this year, and they did a legal analysis, and we are the only state that has any type of primary service area that has zero local control embedded in it. So very few states have these primary service areas, and if they do have them, they have local control and local oversight. Our state does not. We are in a unique situation that we own our own ambulance license, thankfully, but there are overlaps there. So there's more than one ambulance license in the city of Burnsville, and we believe it should be up to the local unit of government, the policymakers, to make the decision on who provides that service and what level of service. So the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association has taken on that initiative. We've got a supporting position at the League of Minnesota Cities unanimously through their work group on that. That'll be going to the board. And again, something for us to contemplate here in the city to move up. But again, we think it's best served by those closest to those getting the service to make the decision on, what is the timeliness of that ambulance, and should it be paramedic level service, shouldn't it? Who first responds on those things? And the local level tends to be the most connected to those folks that are getting that service. So the proposal would be to move that up to one of our initiatives to press on with that, so.
Okay. I think it is appropriate for us to work on it. We just talk about local control. All of this has to do with that, and the thing is, we, as the chief said, we own our ambulance, and we have license for that, and we should have the control over that. And I think you make good points with regard to what happens throughout the other states, and we're the only one who operates under this very complicated system. Okay. Anybody objecting to put the primary service area up to priority?
See if BJ can go 2 in 2 years.
There you go.
Just for clarification, that one was on there for 4, so.
Okay,
I'm comfortable moving that up.
okay, anybody object?
Yeah,
Okay,
because we've got room at the top
yeah,
3.
yeah, so now we have
We
3
got
at the
rid of a
top.
few, so.
So we have primary service area, and we have local control, and the freeway landfill remediation. Okay, we've got 3.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay. We now move on to roundtable, and the next item is the consideration of a public art policy. And members of the council, I ask for your support for, I had sent out an article that was in the Star Trib. It talks about art and its value and benefit to a community. And we in Burnsville have been leading in public art, but we had the Burnsville Community Foundation, thank you, doing all of the work and raising the money for it. I am asking that we, as a city, if a nonprofit organization like the Burnsville Community Foundation, or like the group that's raising money for a statue for Mr. Osiki, that these nonprofits, when they raise they need to raise 90% of the money, then we as a city can look at contributing 10% if they come to us and request that. But we will also cap it at $20,000 in case somebody wants to have a big commissioned piece that's over $1 million. We don't want to look at that 10%, but to cap it at 20,000 plus in kind, that we, because it's going to be it's going to be in a park, and we need to be a part of really understanding that. The other part of all of that is that it has to be an organization that is going to commission a piece of art that is going on public property. So that means a private business or anybody like that would not be eligible for
Doing a
for
piece of art
cities'
on their
contribution.
property.
Pardon me?
They wouldn't be eligible for this program to do a piece of artwork on their property.
That's right, yeah. But it has to be in public spaces, so what I would like support is to direct staff to put together a public art policy and bring it back to us. But those would be the guardrails around it. It has to be a nonprofit that's doing something for the city, and that they raised 90%. 10% we would, if they request, we would consider, but it caps at $20,000. And then it has to be placed in the public realm.
So they could go to any of our parks and that sort of.
Well, they work with us, that's why the policy will have, because it's the same thing that we have now, and I don't know if, Michelle, if you've pulled up the policy that we have.
We don't have a policy that specifically addresses this.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because it was, the Burnsville Foundation is. But what we did do is talk about that all of these public art pieces are in parks, just like the Ames sculpture was in the public realm. Everything that we have is in the public realm at Nicollet Commons Park and so forth, and also at Alamagnet. So
So would this
Okay.
just be for benches? What's on our list? Benches,
Statues.
trees,
Statue,
or what does this apply to?
This only applies, because benches, people pay for it through, the Burnsville Community Foundation markets those benches, and people pay for it.
it's not public art, right?
it's
You're
not-
looking, you're just talking
yeah,
about
it's-
art.
This is
statues.
just about public art.
Statues,
Yeah.
well, maybe
It
not
could be a
plaque.
mural, it could be something.
Murals,
else, I
yeah.
would suspect.
And the thing is, we already have said that we embrace art. I mean, look at Fire Station 1 is now going to have a beautiful mural. You know, and we're paying for it. In Burnsville, we've always had a great partnership with the Burnsville Community Foundation. And now there are other people, but the thing is that they raise 90% of the money. Yes?
I like the idea of this. My one question would be, what would, I'm not quite sure how to put this, but what will we consider art?
That's kind of where my question was
Yeah,
going.
just-
I think that, a public art can be, the statue can be a mural. And I think if you read that article that was in a Star Tribune, I think, Melanie, if I look at some of the things that Egan and Hastings, but the municipalities paid for those, whereas we've always had the partnership with the Burnsville Community Foundation. They have always raised the money. Melanie, and then I'll go to Kara. She has her.
Just for a point of clarification, with my experience in Hastings, the council created a public arts task force who's charged with vetting that and having those discussions. And there is a fixed dollar amount, but there's also a lot of art that was donated to the public
realm.
On a loaner or a gift basis.
Yeah. So the thing is, but right now, we can have, we did, there was BASA, the Burnsville Area Society for the Arts. They were very much a part of, when we did the Ames Center. And they were the ones who talked about what the art gallery was going to look like. They were also part of the group when we talked about Nicollet Commons Park and to put art into that. They were a part of all of that. But we don't have a Burnsville Area Society
No.
for the Arts
Yeah,
anymore.
they merged with Egan now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know, is it one of our, I don't know, is the foundation up for that thing? Or is our Experience Burnsville up for that kind of thing? I mean, do we
Well,
have
I
different
think-
organizations now?
Why
that-
don't we have staff take a look at it and come back with some, I just want some support to move forward with this.
I
and to
support
have a
moving
policy.
forward with it, I just want,
And to have a
there's,
policy.
it's the devil in the details
Yeah.
kind of thing, but.
Well, and I think we can do that with taking a look at all of that. Kara, your hand is up.
So the questions I would have are, establishing the criteria. what criteria would you have to make an objective assessment of, do you fund this art project but not that art project, and then why? You know, so what would that criteria be, and can we have that be an objective criteria, or is it going to be very subjective on, do we like the art, do we not like the art? The other, and yes, we did incorporate art into the fire station, but that was art we selected, and this appears to be art we are not selecting, but is being created or fundraised by an outside organization, and then they would ask us to fund perhaps that final 10% or, you know, whatever that ends up being. And, you know, so that's a little different of a situation. The other thing is, you know, we had kind of talked, and then it was shot down, that instead of having the Ames Commission brought back, that we would widen that out and have an arts commission, and have that be a new commission being formed in our city. But that was shot down. And to me, this is the type of thing that fits underneath that. And now, you know, I don't know. I think that's where this type of thing fits. But it gets a little into, because it's hearkening me back to discussions of what plays do we have at the Ames Center, and saying, oh, well, we don't want council directly involved with that. You know, and then we had a controversy with that, and you know, having that little bit of separation was probably a better thing, which is why we have the management company and that kind of thing. So, I mean, and I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, I'm just throwing these out for consideration on this.
Yeah.
You're right, Kara. Well, I was at the Ames Center when we disbanded that commission, when they made that vote to do that. But the commission also talked about creating just what you're talking about, and they were interested in widening it and being part of it. And you're right, we never went forward with that to kind of bring them together. In fact, I believe what we told them was, if you want to do that, you're on your own, go ahead and go out and do it. And
They didn't want to.
And they didn't want to go out and do it on their own. They were looking for a little more city support for what they were doing. But something like what you're talking about may be an opportunity to maybe resurrect that discussion again, and maybe have an arts commission that kind of looks at a lot of different things in the city, because we're involved in so much these days.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah,
That's something that we can take a look at. We can also talk to the Burnsville Community Foundation, who has raised a lot of money to put art here. And homage is a piece of art that they've raised a lot of money for, 90% of it, and they have 10% left for it.
Well, I think we can discuss those details as we
Yeah.
go along. I think the bottom line, what you're looking for is support to just start changing, look at our policy and how we're going to do it.
We'll create
And then
a
we
policy.
can work out the details.
Create a policy, we don't have one, I guess,
policy.
Yeah, create the policy, and then we can work out the details of how we're going to implement
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah, create the policy is what I would like the support for, and direct staff to come back with, have a conversation with the Burnsville Community Foundation, who has been doing all of the raising of funds for art projects.
They have.
And
Yeah. Dan?
it might be, and I know it's one person carried most of that water, and they've called, I think, every business registered in the city of Burnsville, and maybe every person
For
they knew,
homage.
so it kind of tells you what that capacity might be for any given one project, because they're a dynamo at fundraising, and they've hit a point where they can't,
Yeah.
s-
But
you
they
know,
did
get
a
any more.
great job with Ascend.
Yeah, how much was that one? Ascend?
I
remember?
wasn't on the board, but Dan, you were,
I
it
don't
was
think it
100
was-
and something?
Yeah, something like in that area.
Yeah.
When I got on, just as they were starting to switch over to homage, they just did
Yeah.
the other one.
So, and homage, they've raised
And I agree, the foundation's a good
place to
place to
start.
go, but I do think that it would be to our benefit to have some people that are actually engaged in art and the arts themselves
You
as
know-
part of what we're doing, so
And
that-
I think Kelsey at the Ames Center would know that because she's in touch with all of those art groups.
Oh, no, I get it.
Who are, you know.
I happen to have a number of a few of them right here on my phone.
Yeah.
and-
Who are displaying.
live in
at the-
Burnsville.
Who are displaying
Yep.
and would have some good input.
Well,
So
I-
if
I-
you're
I
okay
think
with
I'm-
creating a
I sup-
policy.
I like it. I think it's beyond just the homage. It's really all these things, because
Yeah.
we've had more than one come up over the last several years. And I really agree with the comments related to, I like the commission idea, because I think there needs to be a, volunteer group of folks who make those types of decisions, and not us at the city on which ones get approved or not, type of
How
thing.
nice would it be to have art in a lot of our parks? I mean, you could have artwork in some of our little pocket parks even. I mean, just if somebody wanted to do that, and that would be pretty cool.
I just side story really quick. I traveled to Fort Wayne to a wedding to my nephew and spent there. And at the convention center, there was a Humane Society gala event going on, fundraiser. And I walked past the front of their deal, saw inside, and they had an auction going on, and there was 5,300 and some up on the big board. And I walked out the other end door to just get some fresh air. And I walked out onto a plaza that had 8 of these molded benches that had the shape of basically maybe a generic shape of a dog head at one end, and then another one that was taller at the other end, and then seating in between, and then something in the middle. And they were all molded off the same mold, and then they commissioned 200 different artists, people, to actually paint. They were commissioned to do one, and 192 of the 200 had sold before that gala for $7,000 each. And they were placed, all 200 of them were placed all over the city all summer long for people to use and sit on. And then they sold the last 8 in a live auction that night. But I thought, what a great idea.
Well,
And
you know,
and
that's
people
not
were
only-
buzzing about it all over. I mean, I went into a police patrolman's ball and met the chief of police there, and then went back into our reception. And I was asking people, have you noticed, friends that live there and my relatives, have you noticed these park benches? Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, they were all abuzz about these dog benches that were each decorated differently.
Well-
So each one had a different dog or a different theme with a couple of dogs.
It's not a new idea. Remember Chicago with all the cows?
Yes, yeah. I do remember.
Molded Snoopy.
And the
Boston
Snoopy stuff, the
Indianas.
peanut stuff, yeah.
And the peanuts, and we had the peanut characters all around here
Mm-hmm.
in the Twin Cities.
Minneapolis did all of their electrical boxes. They had
Yeah.
mirrorless come in and do all
yeah,
of
they
the
do the mirrorless,
electrical
yeah.
boxes in their
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
So the one thing that I want to make sure in this policy, that this is only about projects that are going to be in the public realm and not in private, that will be considered. Because if we're going to contribute to the 10% capped at 20, then it should be only in the public realm. Kara, your hand is up?
Yeah, and as Councilmember Keeley was pointing out, coming up with those kinds of ideas and looking, being able to assist us with coming up with kind of a cohesive arts plan, not just for this, but for so much more. I mean, that really is why, and I understand we have a parallel discussion, that's fine. We can look at this policy, but I really think an arts commission, and we do need to help create that, right? We can't ask residents to just create it and then hope that we're okay with it. So, we do need to help guide that. But an arts commission, I do think that is something that we should definitely look at. And I also think that would give us that step of separation on deciding artwork. Because I think if we have council deciding which pieces of art are acceptable or not acceptable, we're opening ourselves up to things and situations that perhaps we don't want to. Whereas if you have that layer of an arts commission, that, I don't know, I would discuss this with Joel. I would bring Joel into this conversation.
Yeah, well, so what I'm hearing, Melanie, is that we move forward in creating a policy, and then how is that going to be executed? And I hear that an arts commission be established. But prior to getting to that, I would ask that staff have a conversation with the Burnsville Community Foundation.
I agree. We actually have a woman that lives in Burnsville that runs all the art along Lake Street in the city of Minneapolis right now, so, I mean, she's very knowledgeable about a lot of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and
And she might want to be part of the arts
she
commission.
might.
Yeah, okay. All right. So thank you very much, council members, for your support on this. And we're moving forward with a public arts policy and looking at,
She's Latino.
okay. So before we continue, I'm asked that we recess for 5 minutes, and then we will reconvene to finish on the reports.
Is this gonna be long?
5 minutes?
And we are at reports. Okay, we'll
Start
go
with
to
somebody
Dan.
else. Don't keep
Mr.
stopping,
Keeley,
starting
I'm,
with me.
I just can't wait to hear your report tonight.
No, don't start with me.
Okay. Vince,
Don't
what
start
do
with
you
me.
have?
I meant that that way, not that way.
But it sounded good.
Did we talk about fire muster already?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You already gave that report.
It's been a long,
No, wait. Oh, you mean like the fire muster
did
results?
we recap all that already? I think we
Well,
did.
you don't need to give us all of your
Yeah, we did kinda recap
operational
last-
stuff.
Well, no,
We
we-
don't need to know your
Why do we
budget.
do that?
How much money do you have anyway?
It's nobody's business.
Oh, no, you're a 501,
Well,
it's
you
everybody's
wanted to,
business.
you wanted to
Find
give
it
your
on our
fire
website.
muster
Yeah,
report.
go dig it up when you, no. Did we didn't have a work session after, oh, yeah, we did, yeah. It
Oh, yeah,
was
we
right
did.
after.
You
Yeah,
guys-
it was
you
right after.
guys
Yeah.
Gosh, time flies.
You know, the only
Feel
thing
like
I think would be worth mentioning is Jack Kennelly with the Historical Society has been swinging by my office lately with like really cool stuff.
Yeah, from the, yeah,
And
he
he brought
sends me
me,
all of this stuff.
Yeah, and he brought me the 1976 community book.
Yeah.
And I stayed up
It-
way too late last night looking through it.
Yeah, the blue book.
Yeah, the blue book.
Yeah.
The reprint. And so I just want to give a hats off to him and that group because I just thoroughly enjoy everything they put out. It's
You
really
should join their, the Burnsville.
I'm their
Soci-
liaison, but they don't really meet.
Is Len Ackman still part of that?
I think he's still around. Him and
He's still
Benke and-
around, but I haven't,
haven't
I
seen
don't,
him in a couple-
yeah,
few years
he
now.
and Mimi
But
have
we're
just.
coming up on 20 years since the last book. was in
Yeah, the red book,
04.
the red book.
And I don't know if Jack's got it in him to do another one, but
Well, Jack wasn't quite as involved. It was Connie Morrison with the red book,
okay.
and on the blue book, it was Mimi and Len Nachman and that whole group. There was a, yeah,
I love reading their predictions for the future.
Yeah.
They were pretty good. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
So we got to figure out if we're gonna do another one in 2 years. 2 years.
yeah.
But
Okay.
that's all I got.
Okay, Dan?
Well, I was really hoping to hear from Mr. Keeley first, but
Come on, give your 30-second dissertation. You can go into more detail, we're very interested.
last month, we had our annual retreat for the CVB Experience Burnsville. And we went over our marketing plan and budget for this coming year. We've, I think Amy's been rescheduled for November for us to come see, so we've now brought up another board meeting on October 28th. We'll be finalizing the marketing plan and budget. I really don't want to go into it because Amy's going to come and present that to us, and I don't want to
Yeah,
steal
you
her
don't have to
thunder,
go into
but
detail.
I got to tell you, this is a great board to work with. There's so many good ideas coming out of these folks right now, and it's just, they're excited about moving forward in the future, and as we start to hopefully start drawing more tourism back into the city. And as you all know, because of COVID and that, some gears were changed a bit over there, and we're really focusing on local these days. And you're seeing it when I'm sure you're getting emails from us for all the foodie things we're doing, and all the businesses that we're covering there is part of who we are as a city. And we're about to take on things like our biking trails and all the other different things as well. So as far as things you can do while you're in Burnsville, and that's really where we're focused, and it's being all wrapped around you belong here. So it's been a good partnership and all that. So I can't wait for Amy to come talk to us after we approve for all this stuff at the end of the month and woo us like she did last year with all the cool things they're doing.
Did you mean to do that? Put your arms around when you said
I
you all
did.
belong here? That was, looks like a hug.
It's a
You
hug.
belong here?
I'm a
That was a very
hugger.
warm gesture with those words.
I'm actually a hugger,
That was
Dan.
very
Yeah.
good.
Did we lose Kara?
She
Oh.
said her iPad, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, her iPad is dead.
Dead.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Oh, she had a great report she was gonna do too.
Yeah. Okay, so Dan? Do you want me to go?
No, I'll go.
Okay.
All right, at TAB meeting last month, couple notes out of the, all of my notes, but just some highlights. Metropolitan Airports Commission, vaccination sites, back then was, on 9/15 was they were gonna stay open until 9/23, but could be extended. I'm guessing they did. August had 185,000 passengers through TSA, 1.4 million in July, which was against 1.9 million in July of 2019. So they're still, travel's still down. They have a 2022 capital improvement budget for $160 million in investments and improvements. So one of the best airports in the country is going to even get better. By the way, it's won like 3 years in a row, voted best airport in the country. The other thing of note, the 6 reliever airports that we have around the Twin Cities, there were 6, have been going very, very well during COVID. They suspect that travelers wanted a less congested airport. And, MSP wasn't exactly congested in 2019 or 2020. But they suspect, they don't have any hard evidence, that a lot of people who could afford to take a private jet started migrating and using these reliever airports and stayed away from MSP. Possibly not so much to avoid crowds, but to avoid any congestion near contact with other folks. So they're not sure about whether that's going to come back to MSP or not. The reliever airports are getting a lot of traffic. Our Orange Line, I believe, is December 2nd, is the ceremonious ribbon cutting for the Orange Line station in the heart of the city. 2 in the heart of the city, but
That's
the big one.
exciting, actually.
Yeah, December 2nd. Obviously, it kind of looks like it's done and all work. It's kind of sitting there lit up and just empty, right? December 4th? 4th,
Yeah.
sorry.
They
Correction,
still
so
have
forth.
some
A few minor things to do, yeah. Regional bicycle transportation network and regional bicycle barrier updates tab is past this and is sending it for public comment, but big regional bicycle transportation network improvements. Let's see, minimum classifications, that's not, okay, that's good for that. MBTA, I was not at the last meeting, I was out of town, and Jenny Ms. Faulkner covered, and no major news or updates. I'll just touch on the ridership. Of a trickle of an increase in express, but still significantly off. Local, suburb to suburb, which only fell off about 35%. It was operating at 65% during COVID, has continually climbed back up closer to pre-COVID levels. And the most exciting mode is our MVTA Connect, our door-to-door on-demand, which has been expanded into Egan and Apple Valley, so it runs Savage. I mean, it's a large area of service. It just continues to grow month over month over month. So
It's a good deal.
It is. I mean, $3 one way, basically anywhere in the service area, which covers 4 suburbs, is pretty awesome. And I just see that continuing to grow because it takes the issue out of how do I get from my house or my apartment or my condo or my townhome to the bus station where I can then catch that bus to go to the mall or whatever it might be. So it's pick me up in front of my house and take me to the mall. And $3 one way is incredible. Let's see, STA is this Monday. It was moved from yesterday because of the holiday. Most of our discussions right now are all legislative focused, as you can imagine. And looking forward to Monday's meeting to talk about in preparation for the next legislative session. From a drone, the MnDOT's Advanced Air Mobility Work Group continues to meet. The last meeting I was in was a 4-hour workshop with NASA's leadership. Just as a reminder, Minnesota, along with 4 other states or regions, I think LA is one of them. It's not the whole entire state of California, it's LA, but it is the state of Minnesota, were selected from applicants around the country to participate in a pilot program with NASA for advanced air mobility. And the workshop got into a lot of the detail of governance and the process and obstacles and opportunities, et cetera. So heavy lift, getting into the weeds. Still a very long way to go, but making some progress. I did make it a point at that meeting that I said, you know, I just wanted to share my thoughts again, because I feel like I've done it more than once, but it was actually the other groups. I sit in the Minnesota, or MnDOT's Advanced Air Mobility NASA program. I sit on the NLC's Advanced Air Mobility, which has a slightly different and longer name, but we'll call it the AAM for short, cities and regions. And I also sit on the World Economic Forum's Advanced Air Mobility. And those three organizations are obviously very large, all three of them. And they are all talking about exactly the same thing at different phases and from different approaches, but all the same thing. And I really pushed that members of the leadership of each one of those should be sitting on the other two. And so we do have some people on the Minnesota, or the MnDOT, that also serve with me on the National League of Cities Transportation Infrastructure Advisory Committee. But I really felt Katrina, who spoke before of us, Katrina Gilmore should be part of the World Economic Forum's Advanced Air Mobility. And and somehow bridge the gap between the National League of Cities Advanced Air Mobility group. And so the comment was well received by the NASA leadership on the call, and then the chat blew up, and I started getting great idea, great support, absolutely. Can I get on? And so some folks asked me if I could give them an introduction and potentially get them on this World Economic Forum Advanced Air Mobility, because it involves cities from around the world, and it takes it to a broader perspective. And as I think I mentioned once before, one of our recent meetings, we had a presentation, the meeting before last, from Paris, and I found out just how far advanced Paris is on this particular type of project compared to other cities around the world, or certainly around the United States. But there's so much overlap. It's like, okay, when you're sitting on three different huge groups, and they're all talking about the same thing, and they're going at it in different perspectives, you think, this is the redundancy and the inefficiency is atrociously bad, right? So I really, being an efficiency guy and a project manager, I really said we've got to figure out how more of the folks in leadership with each one of these three can sit in on the others, and so they can learn from one another, because it's really silos. I mean, there are three separate silos all talking about the same thing, and there's no cross communication because everybody's kind of got their mind on, well, you know, NASA, we're doing our thing, right? NLC, we're doing our thing, and the World Economic Forum, yeah, we're doing our thing, and the inefficiency is hard for me to just participate in without saying something. So did get a couple folks introduced to the World Economic Forum, and I don't know, National League of Cities is a little bit different, obviously, but there's a lot of folks on all three of those that represent cities in the United States, so that should be easy too. There is one NLC TIS member that's on the World Economic Forum with me, and that was the first person to chime in and go, exactly, I felt the same way. So anyway, I will say that the World Economic Forum Advanced Air Mobility is focused a lot on vertiports, which would be your takeoff and landing for drones or air taxis, unmanned air taxis. And there's companies in the United States and around the country who are building prototypes and flying, testing, doing test flights of these air taxis, unmanned air taxis. We are more focused at the NLC level and at the MnDOT level on drones. And think of the air as having corridors for these to travel in. Just think of the last science fiction movie you watched where there was every building in a major city was 200 or 300 stories tall. And in between those buildings at various levels, there was
Flight paths.
flight paths, basically, right.
Take away
At-
vertical
at-
restrictions in
At
Burnsville.
multiple levels,
Yeah.
right? And so, but
Flight paths.
you probably, if you remember what you saw, you'd see them all going through corridors, air corridors or air paths, and all in together, like all in a line. Some were maybe going diagonally, but they were different, different elevation. That is absolutely true as to what we have to create for the flight paths for drones or these air taxis. So, and naturally, there's, the vertiports are, think of them as a transit stop, like our transit stops for the red line and the blue line, much the same way. Following highway corridors, so the air space above Interstate 35 would be a flight corridor. Flight corridors above the rail systems and stuff as well. So that is that is the type of concepts that are being designed by all of these cities who are working toward this at a very fast pace. And those generally are larger cities like LA, San Francisco, Paris, type of thing. But pretty exciting. Again, local ordinances, big, because when it's on the ground, on the vertiport or the ground, it's the jurisdiction of us. As soon as it takes off, a couple feet above the
FAA.
ground, the FAA takes over.
FAA.
And so it becomes no different than air traffic, controlled
Control.
air traffic that the FAA controls today with our jets. So a very interesting, very much science fiction in many people's minds where this is all going. But to be involved at the front end of it and the develop of the governance and the policies and talking through these issues, how will a community respond? How to, what are the fears and adoptions and concerns, et cetera, are all of what we continually talk about. And that is it.
Okay. The Municipal Legislative Commission work has stopped, and we have nothing. Oh, no, the MLC, we have a meeting coming up, and it's the first meeting that we have that's going to be in person. Is that next week, Melanie?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then Savage, a lot of my stuff is quarterly. Savage, Burnsville, we haven't met. The Metro Cities policy, we're done with our work and reported on that. The Burnsville Community Foundation, we will meet on Thursday. And International Festival Committee, we are in processing for the future mode. That's all I have.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anything else? Melanie, Greg,
I don't think so.
Michelle? Okay. And then we stand adjourned by acclamation. Thank you, everybody.
All right.